Monday, February 13th, 2023. This is going to be Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education meeting. Before we begin, I want to remind anyone that would like to speak before the public, speak before the board, to please sign in. There's a sign-in sheet at the back of the room. Once we get started and after the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll be collecting collecting that. Right now, Patty Patriella, our secretary, is out, so Courtney Lang will fill in as secretary. Roll call, please.
Ms. Espino is absent. Ms. Lang is present. Mr. Mencia?
Present.
Present. Ms. Petrielli is absent. Mr. Reed?
Present.
Dr. Sager?
Present.
And Ms. Schumacher is absent.
Can we please rise for the board for the Pledge of Allegiance? And I'll ask our Rupley students to lead us in the pledge. Start back.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. With that, I would like to turn our first thing over to Rupley School for our Rupley Broadcasting Club. Sorry, if any of your parents want to come and watch your children present, we do have room on the side, so you want to come watch your parents present, take your children present, you can take pictures from the front instead of the back.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Katie Zuloff. I am the proud principal of Rupley Elementary School. And I am thrilled to introduce to you our news crew for our Rupley Broadcasting Center, also known as RBC. So our crew members have a giant role at Rupley. They come to school, they enter the newsroom, and they get us started for our day. They prepare morning announcements. They give us a lot of valuable information about school, and perhaps most importantly, they set a positive tone for making our days absolutely amazing. So I could be up here for hours telling you how special our RBC is to Rupley, but it's only fitting for you guys to hear from our students. Before I pass it off to the students, I'd like to introduce Debbie Candifer. She is our technology assistant, and she is the amazing sponsor of RBC. She has been doing RBC for many years, and she has played an instrumental role in making RBC what it is today. So I wanted to give her an opportunity to share a few words, and then we'll hear from our students.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Debbie Candifer, and I'm the sponsor of Rupley Broadcast Center for the past 21 years. RBC has played an important role beginning each day at Rupley School for 25 years. A typical broadcast crew consists of 11 4th and 5th grade students that come in every morning before school begins to prepare to broadcast live. There is a new crew chosen every 6 to 8 weeks so that more students have the opportunity to be a part of RBC, or past and present students can tackle the new position on the crew if they apply again. We work as a team, and each crew member has an integral part in making the broadcast come to life. I've had the opportunity to work with many students over the years, and it is rewarding to watch them thrive and grow in our tight-knit little crew. I look forward to a connection with students every morning, which is the main reason I continue to do RBC. RBC crew members need to be cooperative, enthusiastic, skillful, and confident to be a part of the Rupley Broadcast Center. RBC crew members keep RBC successful, and many younger students look forward to being a part of RBC in the future. I am so very proud of all the crew members that have been a part of RBC. Now, let's hear some of the Rupley raccoons that have been a part of RBC. Take it away, Evan.
My name is Evan Macker, and
Can you guys hold this when you talk? So we can hear you? Thanks.
my name is Evan Macker, and my job in RBC is video reporter. And I've had 2 jobs. My other job was titles, and my favorite part about RBC is that I get to use a lot of technology. Thank you. What is your name and what do you do in RBC?
Hi, my name is Ashley, and the job I have in RBC are studio assistant and video reporter. I like that I could cover a job if a crew member was not in school. When I was a video reporter, I liked interviewing people and recording videos.
Thank you. My name is Julie, and what I like about RBC is that I get to be a video reporter. I get to work with my friends, and I get to be a leader. What's your name, and what do you like about RBC?
My name is Kevin, and the job I've done in RBC is studio assistant. I've enjoyed doing RBC because I get to see behind the scenes, and my favorite part of it is going to go get the flag holders.
Thank you. What is your job, and what do you do in RBC?
My name is Aiden. My job was prompter. It was fun to be a leader. I love being in RBC because I got to change the slides for the announcers.
Thank you. What's your name, and what do you like about RBC?
Oh, my name is Alexander Juarez, and I liked how we could watch behind the scenes.
Thank you. What is your name, and what do you do in RBC?
My name is Alex. My jobs in RBC have been prompter, announcer, film exhibit, and a video reporter. I like all the jobs and being a leader. I get excited doing the different job roles in RBC.
Thank you. What's your name, and what do you like about RBC?
My name is Mateo. The jobs I've had in RBC are prompter and studio assistant. I like RBC because of the people I'm with, and I have fun.
Thank you. What is your job, and what do you do in RBC?
My name is Haley Hicks, and my job was a studio assistant. I love to get behind the scenes, and being a studio assistant means that I need to know how to do all the jobs. It was absolutely the best. I just love RBC.
Thank you. What's your name, and what do you like about RBC?
My name is Sophia. I have been an audio mixer. Now I am a studio assistant. My job now is great because I get the flag holder, so I get to greet everyone with a smile. For my job, I turn on and off the cameras and lights. I'm also a sub, which feels important to me after a rough time last year. RBC has changed everything. I like being in the studio where everyone is kind.
Thank you. What is your name, and what do you do in RBC?
My name is Sarah E, and my job was titles and what's it called, announcer. And in titles, I basically change the slides that way everybody sees it.
Thank you. What's your name, and what do you like about RBC?
My name is Yatsiri, and I have had 2 jobs in RBC. My first job was being a video mixer, which I like because I get to control the cameras and switch the cameras. And my second job was being studio assistant, which I like. And I turn on and off the cameras. I get the flag holders and I give them a pencil and thank them for being our flag holder.
Thank you. What do you do in RBC, and what is your name?
My name is Jasmine. Jobs that I had in RBC are director and announcer. I RBC because it is fun and I get to be by my friends. I also get nervous sometimes and it feels good. I'm happy that I'm a part of a crew. I love RBC.
Thank you. What's your name and what do you like about RBC?
My name is Mia, and the job role I had was audio mixer. What I like about RBC is that you could be creative and pick the music as an audio mixer.
Thank you.
We also put together just a little highlight reel to show you some behind the scenes look of what RBC entails. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Evan. And I'm Julie. And we are RBC video reporters. Today we'd like to take a look at the jobs in RBC and what happens behind the scenes of the daily broadcast. After that, we will show a few snippets of the actual live broadcast. Let's go into the studio now and see what's happening. Sides are tasty tater tots, fresh fruit, and ice cold milk. As you can see, the crew is practicing the script and checking over things. Let's begin with our announcers. Good morning, Marcos. Can you tell us a little bit of what you do to prepare for the RBC broadcast? We have to go over the script a few times just so we don't kind of mess up sometimes. And where do you look so you can see the so you can stay monitoring so you can know what to say. Thank you. Good morning, Mateo. What do you do for your job?
Okay, so I'm prompter and I give them the script so they can practice and get done the RBC broadcast.
Thank you. Hey, Sarah, what do you do for your job in the morning?
My job is I do titles and I basically run through the script just to make sure everything's there. And then sometimes I turn on for that way people can see us.
Thank you. And for Excel, he taps the prompter and script and titles so that it changes whenever it's on time. And he's our director.
Hello, Alex. What do you do for your job?
I turn on camera A for the announcers. I turn on camera B for the guest or the flag holders. And I basically turn on B-roll for the movies.
Hello, Alex. What do you do?
I make sure that you can hear the music, the announcers, and also the movies and the videos.
Thank you. Hello, Sophia. What do you do?
Turn off the cameras when RBC is done. Turn on the lights when the timer goes off. Get the flag holder when the timer goes off. And put up a sign so the production isn't disturbed. We also help turn on the whole podcast. We also sub if anyone is gone.
And when our broadcast is done, then we get a pencil from the pencil box and give it to the flag holder and thank them for being our flag holder.
Say the pledge. Get the camera smiling. Make sure your flag does not touch the ground.
Is everybody ready?
Yes.
Thumbs up for good luck. And let's get started.
Good morning, Rupley. I'm Marcos Ramirez.
Please stand for the pledge to the flag.
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today is Thursday for the special rotations. It's Thursday.
Have a
be the one who makes others feel included. Thursday.
Might sit down.
Now, before you sit down, I think there's a bunch of people up here with questions.
Yeah, I would love to ask you guys a question. I am very much in admiration of how you work together as a team so supportively and have so much fun in your work environment, especially first thing in the morning. So I am wondering, you guys, if you have advice for how to make a team that works well together and has fun.
Raise your hand if you want to answer. Right here. Give her the microphone.
How we do it is first we all have to want to do it, and we all have to know how early to actually wake up. And we all kind of have to be on time for it, or we're gonna miss something or mess it up.
Thank you.
I have a question. Well, one, you guys did a great job. The how many people watch the broadcast every time you do it? Who knows the answer? Let's see. Just go to a microphone. Pick right here in the green. Is it? Yeah, Sophia.
Well, basically the whole school.
The whole school. So how many kids is that? And any idea?
About 350.
About
300 kids minus the teachers.
About 300. The teachers aren't watching. So about 300 people watch you guys do this. Do you get nervous with that many people watching you?
Yes.
Yeah.
We got it.
You guys became pretty comfortable after you do it a couple times, right? Now you're not scared of talking in front of people, right? Do you know how many people are watching you on YouTube right now? Like a million people. And you guys are doing a great job. But I think the important thing is you see how many people it takes to do the job, right? It's a whole team. Each one of you is important in order to get that broadcast live and running and that information out. So that's the key piece. That's why you guys are doing a great job.
So I have a question. How'd you learn how to do all that stuff? Whoa, everybody. So, look.
Mrs. Canada. So what we do, we learn from the people who had the first jobs, but the people who had the first jobs, Mrs. Candifer taught them. Like if it was somebody doing titles, the next person who did titles would get taught by the person who did it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So you're training each other on how to do this. So when you finished off, someone else will train someone else.
Well, and whenever somebody else becomes video reporter, I'll teach them how to.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that goes on to, what great thing is working as a team. That is really cool to see that you're working and helping your replacement to be able to do their job as well. Because if you don't do a good job training them, what happens? Yeah, it fails.
It doesn't go so well.
Yeah. Young, did you want to add something? I saw you raise your hand on how you learned. You can use the microphone right there. Is it green?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, you can pull it down.
So how we do it is that, let's say that, okay, so I was gonna say the same as, but what they do, okay, so let's say that a studio assistant, okay, so I was a studio assistant, and sometimes the prompter miss, and I'm prompter now. So if you already know how to do it, you don't need to practice it again because you already know.
Yeah. You got to learn, right?
Well, that's a great point because if someone is sick that day, you need someone to fill in for them, correct?
Yep.
Or do anyone you try and do two jobs at once? No.
I don't think Mrs. Candifer would allow that.
And which grade? What grades is everybody in? What's the range? 4th and 5th
Yes.
grade?
Yes.
Awesome. Very cool.
So I had one question for the flag holder who comes in. Is that a member of your crew?
It's just it's a person from like I think we have like a certain class for every
Oh, yeah.
week.
We have a sheet for a classroom every week. We can't choose any RBC member if they're in that class because they need to do their job during that time.
I like to think of it as they're only a crew member for the broadcast. But
ever
I
get excited
think
when
personally that yes, they are a crew member for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, Alonso, how many jobs are there to put on this show? Because there's only two announcers, and there's how many other positions? It looks like there's about
There is 11 people, kids, who do it. 11.
and there's 3 people because there's also the flag holder that are on TV. So, like he goes, there's a lot of people behind the scenes,
Yeah.
which we have a lot of people behind the scenes here too. Yeah, John.
I'd say there's about 9 jobs because thinking that there's the 2 people who go up in front of the screen, then the 2 studio assistants, there's like 7 left.
Where's our man?
2 are video reporters. 2 video reporters. 6.
Yeah.
It takes a little while to count.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, you guys want to? Do we have any more questions? Okay, now I'm going to ask you guys a favor. Can you come up in front so we can get a picture with you? 'Cause we want to be famous because we're with you guys.
Kids, stand right here in front and face that way. You guys all stand right here in front.
And one thing we forgot to ask about professionalism too.
I thought so. Yeah.
You're leaving home, sister. Take me.
Let's all smile for a big picture. There we go. Awesome. All right. Thank you.
All right, Rupley.
That was good.
Mr. Gray, will you be collecting their names for employment to help us out? Thank you.
Okay, our next agenda item is a recognition of national board certification. Just like it is important to recognize our students for all the things that they are doing, it is also important to recognize our staff for some of the accomplishments that they have done. And as a board, we are quite proud of this recent accomplishment that we'd like to share with everyone.
Yes, so I would like to invite Ms. Jennifer Swarbrick to come up for us. I will just read a little bit about your recognition, and then I have a certificate of appreciation for you. So tonight we are very proud, right there is perfect. Tonight we are very proud to recognize Jennifer Swarbrick, second grade teacher at Brentwood Elementary School, for earning her national board certification. Jennifer has been a teacher in our district for 26 years and has taught second grade, third grade, and fifth grade, as well at John Jay and at Brentwood Elementary Schools. I want to just share an excerpt from the press release that was shared by the National Board Resource Center regarding Jennifer's National Board certification. So National Board certification is achieved through a rigorous performance-based assessment of a teacher's pedagogical skills and content knowledge. The certification process generally takes 1 to 3 years to complete. This year, 127 teachers across the entire state of Illinois earned their National Board certification. There were only 336 teachers total across the entire country who achieved this honor. The teacher quality movement in Illinois has made impressive gains over the past several years. As of 2021, Illinois ranks 6th in the nation for overall number of board certified teachers, 5th for the number of new National Board certified teachers, and 4th for the number of renewed National Board certified teachers. While state licensing systems set the basic requirements for teaching in each state, the National Board certified teachers have demonstrated advanced teaching knowledge, skills, and practices. National Board teacher certification identifies qualified teachers as leaders in their field, much like the certifications earned by experts in law and medicine. In short, National Board certified teachers embody the quality of education that families want for their children. So congratulations, Jennifer, and we feel very lucky and fortunate to have you in CCSD 59.
Thank you.
And just for the board's awareness, I know we have a number of teachers within our district over the years who have earned this. So part of our process will be to, as we get new people, to recognize them at our board meetings and give them their moment in the spotlight for a really long amount of hard work that they've put in to earn that recognition.
Item 4.03, winter benchmark report. Mr. Ludloff, I am assuming that is you.
So thank you. Good evening. We are at that point in the school year where we share our winter benchmarking data. The winter benchmark ended in January, so perfect timing for us to come and share the progress made over the course of the first half of the school year. Kind of a tough group to follow, a bunch of great kids and then a national certified teacher, but I'll do my best. So this really aligns with the KPI and the whole strategic plan system the board put together last summer, or 2 summers ago, I should say. And this aligns to the aligned assessment system. And really the idea is for us to report out on that 80% KPI goal. That goal is really tied to student growth and achievement. With our hope that our goal to have at least 80% of our kids being supported in the classroom in Tier 1 instruction. We're defining the 80% as the 25th percentile and up. And as this nice quote talks about that critical mass that we believe when you are at that level, you can meet most of the needs of the kids in class. And then you have enough students, that extra 20%, to meet their needs through interventions, differentiation, and many different support systems. So we're gonna, the main report was linked and shared with the board previously with some great feedback from Dr. Bresnahan and some of the feedback and questions from the committee of the whole. We're going to utilize this in a little different way and visualize the data and select some things in different areas. So first, let's talk about strengths and positives. So as we moved, so again, this data is based on where we were in the fall, with our iReady diagnostic assessment for reading and math, and then where we were, our R and now after the winter, which really occurred in December and early January. So what we're seeing is that a majority, this is new, by the way. We have a way this should be, you should be seeing this at home, hopefully. A majority of students are on track to meet expected levels of typical and stretch growth. As we look at our tier 2 and 3 students in a similar way, we're seeing lots of on-target progress for typical and stretch growth, which we believe really aligns to that win structure, to the interventions in place, and the hard work of students and staff. Overall, our achievement is really aligning with Illinois and the national samples connected to this assessment. I think this winter it's about 6 million kids in math and about 5.5 in reading, so some significant amounts of comparisons. We are seeing a positive KPI increase at most of our grade levels, in most of our schools, and in most of our demographic groups. Additionally, all grade levels and demographic groups increased proficiency, with over 80% getting double-digit increases. A relatively new assessment we have in place, the assessment of Spanish reading, also is showing some positive results and growth. And then what we're seeing with illustrative math, with our ELA structures, those curriculum pieces, we're seeing that incremental growth over these last few years. So let's dig into the data. First, what I want to highlight here, this is actually a 4th grade student from one of our schools, and this is a math report. If you remember from last year, we talked about kids take this assessment, it takes about 30 minutes, and it's an adaptive assessment, which means they start out with questions, they get questions right, it gets harder, they get questions wrong, it gets easier to get to a certain level in connection to the grade level benchmarks. This student in the fall scored a 432. That was at the 24th percentile and was 2 grades below grade level. This kid rocked it from fall to winter and is now at a 465. That's a 33 scale score point growth, is at early grade level, and actually is at the 50th percentile. The way we define that, basically this student scored as well or better than 50% of the kids at their grade level in math in the nation. To highlight a few other pieces, we talk about typical growth. So that's that target, that basically a year's growth for each student based on where they started. So this student has exceeded their typical growth, which basically means they've made a year's growth in a half a year. Then you see stretch growth. Stretch growth is an ambitious but attainable goal. And the idea there is to close those gaps, not quite there, but actually 80% towards their goal. We would expect that halfway through the year, if they were at 50%, they would be on target. So this student, it's a great example. These are reports that really allow us to see where they were at, how they're growing, and whether they're on target or not. So then this data really highlights that then for the district. When we take this assessment, iReady puts any kids into 5 different levels. You have mid and on grade level, early on grade level, 1 grade level below, 2 below, or 3 or more below. What you can see is the dark blue is math, the lighter blue is reading, and you can see where our kids are falling across halfway through the year. So iReady tells us that if you're in that 40 to 60% range by the end of the year, that should be expected. They've talked about 70% really is excellent, but we're right in that range to be on track to meet. What we really like about this graph is our kids who are below grade level are actually well on target to hit at least typical growth. And if they're already there, which this slide will highlight, these are kids who are already at end of year typical growth. If I look at this student over here, this 48% in reading, so 3 kids who are 3 grades or more below, 48% have already hit their end of year typical growth target. They're included in this 64, but that data really tells us kids who have already met a year's growth and can continue to grow through the rest of the year. So super positive data in regards to typical growth. At the same time, typical growth, a year of instruction, you should get a year of growth. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of the minimum. This is the basic. So then we talk about stretch growth. Stretch growth in this process is how do I, like that one student, grow to where I can get closer to grade level or on grade level if I'm below, or extend my learning. So in this example, now I already tells us that 25 to 35% is expected. This is not easy stuff, but the reality of shooting for that process, you can see we're on track as a system, that all of those 5 levels are on track in the 30s and 40% to hit stretch growth for the year. When we talk about what do those numbers look like today, you can see these numbers indicate the numbers of kids, percentage of kids who are already at stretch growth. So that 22%, so 22% in reading of who are mid or on grade level have already hit their target. 17% in reading who are early on. 15 and 1 grade level below. This is that piece where we'll talk a little bit about, it's not a concern, but we'd love these numbers to be higher. We talked about that in the committee of the whole, that like kids who have to grow the most, we need them to grow the most. So we'll continue to focus on that piece. Lots of systems in place to meet those needs. Then let's talk about schools. Same idea, typical growth. Dark blue is math. Light blue is reading. You can see how each school shakes out over the course of the year so far. Again, on track to meet those goals. We've got schools in the 50s, the 60s, and even the 70s. Lots of positive growth, very much on target to really exceed that typical in many, many areas. So then this is stretch growth. Similarly, 30s, 40s, and 50s, as a school, as a district, we're at 39 and with reading or with math and 44% with reading in regards to stretch growth. And then you can see how that flows across all of our schools. So very much on track to hit stretch growth, fall into that expected category. Again, we want those numbers to be as high as possible so we can close those gaps. Questions about typical growth, stretch growth?
I kind of a question. We saw big gains in math from in the fall from last year, but like in this last fall. We're not seeing the result as big of gains. We're seeing bigger gains in reading. Is there an explanation why that could be happening?
You know, we've talked as an MTSS team. I think one, you've got on the reading side, a lot of consistent structures in place. For a good portion of the year, actually at the junior high, we've really had, I think they're calling it a soft launch or year 0 of the Study Sync curriculum. The phonics piece at the primary grades has really been rock solid and in place. So I think those structures are there. On the math side, we're making nice incremental growth. When we talked last year, we especially felt last year from fall to winter was really that first sort of normal school year in a number of years that we saw a lot of growth and opportunity for that. So we're feeling we're still very much on track. But you'll see throughout reading in many cases is outperforming math.
Tom, can we go back 2 slides or so, the blue and whites, where we talk about one more
stretch growth, typical growth?
Yeah, let's go back. I want to make sure. Yeah, I think it was this one.
Yep.
So just to make sure that I understand it here. So the first slide here, the one on the left.
Yes.
The mid or right there. Mid or on grade level.
Yes.
So these students, 51% of those students that are at mid or on grade level are on track. That's what we're saying, right? They are
on track to make a year's growth. Now they are already on grade level, so they're on track to exceed their current status and move into another grade level.
So the student 1 grade below, if we look at the middle chart there, 1 grade level below. 58% of those kids
in math
are on track to get to grade level
to make a year's growth.
To make a year's growth.
Yes.
Okay. So if they're 1 grade level below, does that not equal?
So if this is we'll use a 4th grader as an example. If I start the year at third grade level, I'm on track to meet a year's growth to get to the start of 4th grade. That's when we talk about stretch growth. Right. That's where we start to close those gaps and start to get to like that sample piece where that student started 2 grade levels below and now is early on grade level.
Right. So it'll be the start of. Okay. That makes sense.
Great question.
So then, Tom, if you could stay on that for 1 sec, then the next slide right to the right tells us that of those students who are one grade level below,
Yep.
we do have 35%
In reading.
that are going to start to close the gap in reading towards being
So in a
on
half of
grade
year, they
level.
made a year's growth. So the rest of the year, as long as they continue to grow, they're going to be closing those gaps.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great way to describe it.
And I guess my question too is seeing how, like, as you mentioned, we would like to see higher stretch growth values for the 1 and 2 and 3 grade levels below. I'm wondering how we feel about our curricular resources in that area, because I know, like, for a student, as soon as you get out of like what would be the core curriculum, you're having to bring in different resources sometimes to like elevate them up. How do we?
Yeah. So a great thing about this year, we've actually purchased and are utilizing a number of newer intervention programs. And I'll show you a slide at the end where we're actually analyzing then those intervention plans to see how many kids are in it, how are they doing in comparison to that. Now, I think most of the district MTSS team would say year one, we wouldn't want to say that's the great program, everyone should be in it, or we should throw that one away. We need a few years of data, but we're actually looking at that data to see how that works. As a sample, I will say that first slide, that student at the 24th percentile, so that's just under our 80%, that student's not getting intervention because in the school they're at, 24th percentile they don't have the resources to be able to meet that child's in a smaller group or intervention setting. Great question.
As long as you brought up that student sample report, is this shown to the parents then during parent conferences?
Not exactly like this, but a report does go home to families.
Okay.
I think the parent report, I know this one's a little different. It depends, but I think I'd have to look at that. I don't want to stretch myself on that one and get it wrong.
It's similar, though. I mean, I saw one a week ago. It's similar.
And the parents should have a true idea where their students at?
Yes.
Okay.
With percentages and what would be considered on grade level, below, above.
Okay.
It looks almost virtually identical.
Yeah, I added a few extra things to highlight it. So moving on to proficiency in our KPI. So this is the report you might remember from previous presentations. And this report, again, it's the iReady proficiency. You got the 5 levels. This is where we were at in the fall. You can see as a district, we had 7% at the mid or on grade level, 12% early on, 47% 1 grade level below, 18% 2 grade levels below, and 17% 3 or more. Those numbers at the top talk about how many kids actually were assessed. So 5281 in the district, 250 plus thousand in Illinois, and almost 8 million in the nation. So the piece we really want to highlight then is where are we at now? And that's this piece right here. So you can see we had some very nice growth with the mid and on grade level and the early on, and then reductions in the below grade level pieces. So basically it's kids moving up. This is where, something where it's very nice to see is when we compare to the nation in Illinois, we're very much aligned, or in this case with math actually outperforming Illinois and the nation. And this also helps us because I know we talk a lot about 2 and 3 grade levels below. That's not great. We don't want that, but at least it aligns with, remember, this is a test, an end of year grade level test based on the Common Core, shows where the rest of the nation is also. And then finally, this piece over here, this is pre-COVID. So you can see no one's back to where we were then.
And Tom, so if we were to ask the question on this of where are we towards our KPI of meeting 80th percentile, those numbers at the bottom for tier 1?
You got it. Yes.
Okay.
Here's where we were in the fall. Here's where we are now this winter. And actually something we're adding now, this is where we were last winter. So you could see some nice growth. I think the highlight here, so we had a 15 percentage point growth into the green. That translated into 1.2% to the KPI. So when you see proficiency changes, that might be pretty significant. You're not necessarily going to see them in the KPI. That's that incremental piece that it's going to take time and over time.
What's the link with 1 grade level below, 2 below, 3 below, where we start to see the numbers go down with math? I'm trying to say, figure out how to say this here. What's the link between the amount of reading necessary to answer those math questions?
So a nice part about iReady for kids that we would say qualify, they actually can take the math assessment in Spanish is an option that's available to kids so they can show us what they know. I know there have been questions, the vocabulary, what's the impact on that piece? I can't speak to that exactly, but I would say we have options for kids along that path. Okay.
Sorry, I'm still sorry, Tom. Can you go back?
Yes.
So I see those, that we're down 5 percentage points in the 3 grades below level. But those kids are moving up from 3 grades level to 2 grade level.
Potentially to 2, potentially to the sample. That child was 2 grades below, moved from the light 2 grade levels below to and jumped up to.
Yeah. So there could be multiple grade level jumps in there.
I'll show you a little later when we talk 2 and 3 grade levels below. I know for math and reading, we had over 500 kids move out of those areas into higher grade, either one below early on or even on grade level.
So that's why, because if you see a number changing at one point, I could see it impacting numbers above it.
Yeah. To Randy's point, so if we went from 17 to 12 in that 3 or more grades below, that's a change in 5%, right? So 250 kids, right? Moved up to that next level, which means that 12% includes the 5.
Includes
so really there's only
17%, right?
There's only 7 left from the original 18%.
Right. And that's kind of that's what I was trying to get to.
So they're constantly displacing each other. It's not just 5% and 6%. It's actually 11% moved up from 2 to 1.
Yeah. That's why I was trying to clarify. The last question I'm looking at, just looking at the numbers, like, you talk about the number of kids taking the test in the fall was almost $8 million nationally, and $6 million nationally in winter. Is that because some area states may not test during the winter?
Yeah, our assumption is that some school districts probably do a fall and spring only. You could see it kind of play out in Illinois too, that for whatever reason, they don't have a winter benchmark period. And we'll see what the data looks like in the spring to see if that holds true. All right, so now let's talk proficiency. So iReady math proficiency by school. The first column, the lighter green, that's the fall for math. The darker column is green for the winter, and you can really see across the board. That's where in our positives we talked about every school grew and many double-digit increases across the board. Super positive. Again, hard work of our staff. Hard work of the kids, obviously, and everyone that's partnering and learning. But at the same time, that then translates into these are our grade level KPIs. So you can see how the KPIs then as the district, we are at 65.2, now 66.4, and then how that flows across each grade level. You'll see 3rd and 6th grade, we saw some slight decreases. That's something we've seen these last few years as we talk about it. Even our work with iReady, we talk about that transition to 6th grade and the impact there. In the end, there's some curricular, some scope and sequence pieces. The nice part is at least those grade levels, for the most part, at least 3rd grade is still hanging pretty tough on the higher end.
Can we look at the slide before this one?
Yes.
So with the fall, this is wait, is this the fall or the winter?
Fall to winter math growth by school.
Okay, fall to winter math growth by school. And in the fall, do all of the schools take the iReady assessment at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have about a 2-week window where we take that assessment. Same thing in the winter. Obviously, new kids wouldn't count in growth, but might count in proficiency. And then there needs to be at least a 12-week window between the 2 tests to get growth results.
Okay, interesting.
So again, that's where we're at KP. As you see a couple grade levels starting to sneak in those 70s, which we love to see. And obviously we love to see growth. Then this piece really, this is how we compare to last winter. I know this is a little busy, but basically we'll use this as an example. Last year's 1st graders, 21, 22 are now this year's 2nd graders. You can see how those results, they went down just a little bit. It's not a true cohort as in It's last year's first graders, this year's second graders. There many kids have moved, new kids have moved in. A true cohort, you would look at just kids who were here last year and just this year, but it's a way to represent the data. You'll see at our primary levels, we're either holding or losing a little ground in second to third. Again, those are things we've looked at and talked about. That whole third grade transition does seem to have an impact. Those numbers, though, are still hanging pretty tough on the higher side. We like seeing that growth on the other end, and this is where we're focusing win time, our intervention time, the allocation of those resources to support, and it seems to be having an impact. Okay, to move on to reading. So now reading, same idea. You see where we were at in the fall, where we are at now here in the winter. So we had a 9 percentage point in the on-grade level from fall to winter and 5 for the early on. So a nice 14 percentage point increase. You can see how, again, that same kids are moving up out of the below grade levels into the either next level above or even farther above. We compare pretty well to Illinois and the nation, a little bit behind on this side, otherwise pretty much, very much in alignment with those comparisons. And then you can see down at the bottom where tier 1 in the fall, 66.4, now 68.3, last winter, 66.9. Then let's talk proficiency. Again, this is reading, fall reading to winter reading. Again, you can see lots of double-digit growth across our schools. And again, this is the mid and on grade level pieces. And this is our KPI, fall to winter. Again, kindergarten kind of jumps out. You can see that piece. Again, third grade. We're a little flat at seventh grade, although pretty high in the almost mid 70s, but some nice incremental growth from fall to winter across most grade levels and system-wide. And then this is how that compares to last year. Again, there's some assumptions from our team, those primary grades, K1, 2, that we're focusing so many resources on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's a group that we're not able to allocate as much support to, yet at the same time, we're still seeing some nice standards of growth and proficiency. So that was reading and math. This is ASR. This is that new assessment of Spanish. Just to highlight really quickly over here, it's really an assessment of Spanish reading at grade level. It's for our dual language students, Spanish students in grades K to 6 who get reading instruction in Spanish. It's not nationally normed like the other iReady, and it's not adaptive. So basically, you take the questions, it doesn't adjust as you go through. But again, some nice growth from fall to winter. We're working with iReady to, build our understanding around this piece. And actually, I know our instruction department, multilingual department, is looking for various pieces of data to help inform our programming and how kids are doing.
So for instance, these are the students that select a second language spoken at home, that take the access test. They're given then, if Spanish, they're given the test to see how proficient they are in Spanish only, right?
In Spanish, correct. So it would be any students in one-way or two-way dual language Spanish, and whether they're native Spanish or native English.
And to compare it to access, eventually in access, they may test out
Correct.
of access, but there isn't a structure like that for if they're
Access is a language proficiency type of assessment. So this would say at third grade, how's that child doing in third grade, and how does that compare potentially to their access?
But they're not taking tests yearly, like an access test.
Access is an annual test, yeah.
But for Spanish, I mean, just for their Spanish proficiency.
This assessment is part of our benchmarking, so it's 3 times a year.
Okay.
Tom, can I ask a question on this one? What do we make of, like, while there's the incremental growth, right, in grades 3 through 6, what do we make of how it goes down?
Yeah, no, it's a great question of, okay, what happens over time? Why is it? And again, I don't want to speak to that. I don't know enough, and we haven't had enough opportunities with the data. An assumption I would make potentially is, so kids who are still qualified for a program after 5, 6, 7 years, there could be more than just language pieces connected to that. But again, we'd want to dig deeper into that. We need to work on that.
Yeah. And I guess you don't have those norms, like you said, from other schools to compare it against.
Correct. The frustrating piece with our work with iReady, that there are many areas, like this would be one, how do we compare to other school districts that are taking this? That's not data they make available to us or have organized in a way that they can share it with us. Just like they don't have demographic data that they're able to share with us, because we'd really like to see that piece. I will say, in a recent meeting, one of the iReady individuals we work with stated that they felt our results look pretty good compared to what they've seen in other districts. I don't know what that means. It's better than looking bad, but we definitely don't have a comparison to look at. This next slide is just basically winter, and this has 3 levels of assessment, or ratings, I guess you would say, however you want, or levels of where they're assigned. You can see how that flows across each grade level. Okay, so then let's talk about opportunities for growth. So we know that while students 2 and 3 and more grade levels below really are doing well on the typical growth side, that stretch growth seems to be very much in alignment with the rest of the district, and or even below other groups. We know that as a district, we have some groups in that 80% tier 1 KPI target, but most are not. We see some pretty significant achievement gaps across schools and demographic groups in the district. While the students 2 and 3 or more grade levels below aligns with the nation, we do also see some great variance in how that flows across our schools. Again, it's always an opportunity to dig in and use this data. I want to commend our staff. They're doing a great job to really maximize the use of the data, but in an efficient way. And then lastly, and this is a piece, as we move into the spring, while we have a little more instruction time between now and the end of the year, we also have access testing, which basically is just finishing up over the last month. We have IAR testing, we have ISA testing, we have some district level assessments. So there's a lot that impacts instruction over the remainder of the year, and it's something we want to be aware of. So when we jump into the KPI, so this is really to highlight and outline some of the achievement gaps we're seeing. So what you're seeing here are demographic groups. This is math. And you can see the differences between, this is free and reduced lunch. So kids who qualify for free and reduced lunch, our KPI is 55.3. Kids who don't, it's 84.7. And you can see how that flows across multilingual, IEP. The female-male piece really balanced out this assessment period. So while it's not perfectly balanced, it's right there. And you see similar pieces on the math side when we talk about tier 1. Some significant 20, 30, 40-point discrepancies. This piece in the middle, just to provide some perspective. So free and reduced lunch, we're at 56.1%. That's over 3,000 kids. So when you see that achievement gap, that's over half of our students. So that's those demographics. Then we look at race and ethnicity. Again, you see some areas that jump out more than others in comparison to the district average in both reading and math. Some that balance out quite well. And some, not that it's a surprise, but something that wouldn't align with like state data. Our African-American group up into the 70s really is outperforming what you'd see on some of the state level data, which we're happy to see and proud of. All right, this switching colors. So this is 2 and 3 grade levels below. And really the purpose to highlight here are those discrepancies across schools. So the volume of kids who are falling into those categories. And while I don't have the numbers there, we have to remember too, so 40% at Byrd in a school of 318, you know, is actually, I have it here. It's about 100, and in the fall was 117 kids.
Mhm.
Now, what's really cool about the work of Byrd and the kids and staff at Byrd, now it's down to 65.
Mhm.
So you talk about shifts. Now, when you look at a school like Salt Creek, which is over 400 kids, that 32% is 124 kids in the fall, and now down to 73 kids. That reality, when we talk about, and we've talked a lot about resource allocation, how do we meet a school's needs when they have 117 kids who are 2 or 3 grade levels below?
Mhm.
And how does that system support that and shift to that? What it shows is the system we have in place is meeting those needs, but it's not knocking those numbers down. Again, we want to get to that 20% needing extra support, not 40%. You know, Grove has done some great work this year. They reduced by 9%. That was 250 kids in a junior high school of over 700. Now it's down almost under 200. That's significant. That's a huge volume of kids.
Do the newcomer students take the iReadies as well that year?
They may, if they have the skills to do that. Again, it depends on their language. We're not going to force a kid to complete an assessment, but we'll at least try. We want to get that data.
Sure.
So this is math. This is reading. Again, we see some nice reductions across the board. Great work by our staff, by our leaders, by our kids. And we believe our intervention structures and systems are having an impact. All right, now let's talk, what have we done since we completed this piece? So our schools have done a great job of analyzing their data, either as a school, as grade levels, as individual teachers. Our district MTS team, we did an administrative team analysis and action planning based on kids 2 and 3 or more grade levels below, where we really looked at those kids. We wanted to see what kind of growth they were having, and then even tying it to what kind of programs they were in and getting supports. The district MTSS team, I'll show you in a second, really has analyzed a number of those interventions, those new things in place, and see what kind of impact is happening. We did a similar with the district team with our math and reading interventionists at the elementary level to break out and see where kids fall, what kind of growth we're seeing, especially connected to stretch growth. That's been our focus. We want to see what kind of gaps we're closing. We, as I said, meet with iReady. While we didn't go through every slide, this is a 140-page report that they provide us and really walk through things they're noticing positive or things we need to question and think about. They ask us a lot of questions and really helps drive some of our thinking and planning. And it's been a great support to make sure we're on track and moving ahead the way we need to. Just last week, the district MTSS team, actually, I believe Tricia Senni ran all of those meetings, met with the intervention teams and grade level teams at the junior high to talk about when and next steps and actions and how the type of progress kids are making. And then, based on even some of the questions today, we're trying to figure out and learn more about the Spanish reading piece and understand that. Just to share a couple screenshots. So this is our Instructional Leaders PLC. Really what we did was we were looking at subgroups and we wanted to see where they fell with stretch growth and really targeted and placed. We actually do some of this work, not electronically, but by hand and using labels, and really want to see it and handle it. This is the classroom quadrant analysis. A teacher would take this. This is a sample of their classroom, and they would place these kids into that quadrant. So that first student who is rocking it, almost quadrupled their start of the year score, made 390% progress towards typical growth. That's high growth, and they are early on, so they would fit right up here, higher growth, higher performance. Next student really hasn't made any progress. So that student would be lower growth, lower performance. Teachers would go through this process, and it's really how they can help set their groups. They bring that data to their tier 2 and tier 3 meetings, and really try to define and see what's happening. And it leads to discussions of, wow, Tom started the same place as Susan started, and in your class, he made a bunch more progress than she did in my class. What are you doing? Or what are those structures and what's happening? This is that piece I've highlighted a number of times. This is the intervention programs. So I just took kind of the top ones. You can see, so Wilson Foundations, 130 students are getting that intervention. They're on track to exceed typical growth with 70%, on track to make stretch growth almost 47%, and they had an average percentile increase of 7 percentage points. So Corey King, our coordinator of data and assessment, really went through every single one of theirs. I think it's about 3 pages long, even if there's just one kid in that intervention, to see what kind of impact we may have saw. This is a sample of what iReady provides us. This is the instructional path. What they tell us, and really one of the cells when we went with iReady 3 years ago, was the instructional path where kids can practice and dig into at their level and improve their skills. And what they really talk about, if kids can spend 30 minutes a week, pass those assessments at 70% rate, they see some pretty strong growth across their entire system. And that's something our teachers do and schools do really well, of finding ways to influence kids along that path. And this last piece, this is where we literally took grade levels and placed kids and groups based on schools of where they fell into. This top piece is that percentage of stretch growth. So we want it to be 50 plus. Feel better about 31 to 49. Now you have to keep in mind, this is a great example. That first one, 0 to 10%, is 2 kids. So we're also looking at the numbers of kids, because one kid, when you start to get in low volume, a lot can happen that really could be the best program ever, but could be impacted by those types of things. So I think I'm very impressed with the analysis we've been able, and I think last year we came into this point and said, well, here are things we're going to do. Well, we've already done all these things, and we'll continue to grow through the spring. And then we're hopeful that towards the end of the school year, when we complete our last piece, we might trying to work with iReady to have them come in and guide some of our staff through school-based staff through some of the things they do with us at the district level. That is it.
So on the previous slide,
yes,
if we've got programs that are 3 to 7 percentile points, that's enough to typically take a student from the tier 3 up to tier 2.
Potentially, yes, sir.
Right. Okay. And then once they're in tier 2, these are tier 3 interventions?
These are mostly our tier 2 interventions.
Okay.
Could be a mix of both.
Okay, so it could take maybe half the kids from tier 2 back up to
get them into, And when we get to 1 grade level below, if we're 2 or 3 below, you're starting to fall into that above the 25th percentile. Yes, and the piece and the point to this is, so if we continue to see this throughout the year, at some point we'll start to shrink that toolbox of interventions and say, these are the ones that work the best or have worked the best. And let's ensure we really build capacity around that piece, provide the training around that piece, and continue to analyze and look at that.
All right, can I ask one more thing? So
no more questions.
The percentile growth, this is for half a year. This is for half a year.
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay. So yes, there's a few that are really standing out in regards, and we have, I wanted to show some of the higher volume. It's not 3 kids,
but they're catching up on a group that's moving as well. So it's their percentile rank is going up, but all the kids are learning at the same time across the nation.
Yes.
So they're moving up, catching up. It's not a 7-point compared to fall. It's a 7-point compared to now.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece when we talk about the KPI. There's 6 million kids also learning and growing and changing and moving. So it's not static. It continues to change throughout. Well, awesome questions and comments.
job.
Anything else I could highlight before I
Yeah,
step away?
can we go back to the your pink and red colors?
Yes, sir.
So one of the things you were talking about was the interventions and the number of students that were going in interventions.
Yes.
Now, support-wise staff, we have additional staff at these schools to do that, or is it more?
In some cases, but for the most part, I think as we've talked about, the allocation of interventionists and other support staff is pretty even across our schools.
So you're talking 1 interventionist per school, 2 interventions per school?
That is pretty much the standard. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that's if they're not subbing.
If they're not subbing or filling in somewhere else, yes. How many students can an interventionist see in an average week? Depending on, I imagine, depending if they're one of especially if it's a group of 1 student or 2 students or 3 students, that impacts it too, I'm assuming.
I think there are some principals in the audience that
I kick it
I
to
will
some of our
go to their
principals if they-
expertise.
Yeah, and I think it varies too who is actually supporting in the interventionists. I think that's another piece when we looked at that last slide with the impact of the interventions, is we're trying to figure out as well who are the people who are administering these interventions. Is it in some cases it may be the classroom teacher, it may be an interventionist, it may be a support staff member. And are there some fidelities in the implementation that we need to improve upon through our resource allocation to ensure that we are really delivering the intervention the way it was intended to deliver? But any principals want to?
You're on.
So depending on the intervention, there are some interventions that the best ratio would be 3 to 1, 3 students to 1 teacher. There are some where it's 5 or 6 to 1 would be appropriate. So it depends on the intervention. And so when we're making plans for students, we're looking always at increasing time and intensity. So it really depends on, we'll try, time first. So maybe that student is receiving the intervention 5 days a week. But sometimes we'll need to increase the intensity. So we might add on another component to that. So it's really hard to say how many students, because it really depends on the intervention. We could all go back and count for those, but I think it really, each intervention would allow for a different number of students, if that helps.
So I think my follow-up question is that in the screen previous to that, we talked about the ethnicity results. I know we are struggling to find interventionists that speak Spanish or some of the other languages where we have, our kids that are English language learners in. How is that impacting that? I mean,
Mr. Vittori
I answer my own question because we're struggling finding that staff.
Yeah, the part of the reality of, I think Mr. Vittori shared a few times, one of our schools, I think it was here in the room, for almost half the year didn't have a totally certified dual language Spanish teacher. We couldn't fill the position. We couldn't find someone. To say we could then take someone out of the classroom to be an interventionist could be very difficult to make that happen. So that's difficult across the board. There are some areas where, unfortunately, the teaching profession doesn't get the best rep, and a lot of people have moved away from it. And some positions, I'll speak for myself, dual language, you've got a lot of options. So people can move, find something they might perceive as better or better pay. I think we support our staff really well. We've got some great relationships with local universities. I think we hired the most dual language staff last year than we were able in many, many years. But the reality is we also have dual language programs at almost every one of our schools.
Right. I'm sorry. I have one more follow-up question on this. The I Ready Fall benchmark for 2 grades level below. Do we have that broken out by demographics? Can that be broken out by demographics?
It absolutely can.
I want to see where it'd be nice to see where I'd like to see where the improvements are being made.
Yeah, the best part, I mean, clearly it's an opportunity for growth, but it's also a celebration that.
Oh yeah,
I understand.
I mean, I think our staff has done. It's amazing seeing 100% increase.
We'll give you the breakdown and the count. Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. All right, appreciate it.
So thank you, Tom. And I'd also like to highlight, thank you to the teachers and the rest of the staff who've made big gains over the last 2 years.
It's great to share the data, but the reality is that what's happening in our schools and our classrooms is making a huge difference.
Item 5.0, comments and suggestions from the public. Before we begin, I have a little statement to read. This is the point of the meeting where we welcome public comments. Tonight is a regularly scheduled Board of Education business meeting. The purpose of the meeting is for the board to properly address the items on the agenda publicly as required by the Open Meetings Act. To allow the board time needed to address all agenda items, we ask you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. A board member will serve as timekeeper and will give the speaker notice when there are 30 seconds remaining to allow the speaker time to complete or summarize their thoughts. Public comment during a business meeting is a time for the board to listen to comments from the public. This is not a time for two-way discussion between the board and the public. Please understand the board will not ask nor answer questions. If you have questions or wish to have a response to any item, please submit your comments in writing and the superintendent will follow up with a response. We also want to remind those in attendance that the meeting is being video live streamed. The video of the meeting will be archived and available for viewing after the meeting has adjourned. For those of you sharing public comment, please be mindful that you are being broadcast live and your comment will be also included in the video archive. With that, Barb Samaji.
I'm Barbara Samaji, community member since 1967 and former board member. I am proud that my name is on a plaque in the corner of this boardroom. Since 1990, I've tried to stay abreast of the district, not critiquing its operation since access to all internal related communications is limited. Circumstances and my frustrations have led me to speak about decisions that are being made without early stakeholder notice, debate, and support. Some history. Ridge was a Board of Education commitment. Researched, established, and approved by the board. Ridge was opened in 2001 as an independent pilot school where new curriculum and ideas were tested, and if successful, were to be rolled into other schools. By 2008, only 5 items were replicated. Yearly reports on the school's progress were given to the board. A building leadership team was developed where parents, teachers, and administrators discussed pertinent Ridge issues. In 2008, a Ridge comprehensive reassessment study was produced. Alarmed when yearly reports were presented to the board and alerted to the new study, parents and teachers were concerned that Ridge could be closed at any time and rallied board meetings. In response, the board voted to extend Ridge for 10 years with the stipulation that there would be a report in 2018. In the meantime, slowly the autonomy of Ridge was diminished, and the unique programs, piece by piece, were dismantled without board or public notice, discussion, or understanding each issue. Later in 2018, when the board did not receive the requested study, I asked the superintendent if the administration was going to give the board a report. I was told no, since there was too much on the table that year. I did mention that a reassessment of Ridge was requested and needed at several meetings, including my last board meeting. My request for reevaluation was not addressed. If that reassessment study was done in 2018, the commitment to Ridge might have been extended to 2028. My point is, who is afraid of open discussion and debate? I have always believed that decisions are best when fully vetted, with everyone affected providing input into the decision that is finally proposed. Ridge was a board-approved school, and the board, parents, teachers, and community should have been alerted and involved in discussions way earlier than during curriculum development. An informational fact is when the location of a gym at Salt Creek School was being proposed, the local residents stormed the board meetings in opposition. I told them to trust the district. All their concerns were respected and addressed, and they were pleased with the finished building. Trust in the administration and the board has been damaged. Please work to reestablish that trust, and stakeholders are respected. Thank you.
Thank you. Deb Binky.
It is my understanding that members of the board have received an influx of emails from Ridge parents regarding tonight's agenda. Many outside of those that emailed echo what you've received. These parents and guardians may not physically be present here tonight, but hopefully you'll remember what was imparted to you and take that into consideration when it's time to vote on the calendar recommendation. Based on the posted agenda for tonight, it appears you'll only be receiving one recommendation for next year's calendar. Yet again, the SLT is attempting to systematically disassemble Ridge one piece and program at a time. They didn't even bother to give you an option to vote to approve the balanced calendar. It has been previously mentioned by the SLT that there is no evidence that a balanced calendar is beneficial to assist with learning retention. At the last meeting, I cited two of the many articles I found that state the opposite. One was from the UIUC and the other was from the AASA, the School Superintendents Association. To dismiss the actual evidence from the AASA is mind-boggling. To quote from the article, a foundation of the balanced calendar is continuous access to instruction and education resources, which research shows is especially important in preventing summer learning loss for low-income students who may not have the benefits of travel, camps, and trips to the library. We are able to provide that continuous access through our intersessions, the days students are on break. With additional days, students might actually go to school for more than 200 days each year. Instead of spending all this time, energy, and resources focused on Ridge, the SLT should be focused on getting students in the district up to grade level and dismantling the segregation in our schools. If the goal is to find a long-term solution to address the inequities in our district, getting rid of Ridge does not address any of the eight areas of focus of the equity journey. Redistricting school boundaries is a viable option, and the excuse of it being, quote, too messy to do is unacceptable. We are not here to make your job easier. You are here to ensure the students are getting what they need. If that means doing what is right is too hard, maybe you should have chosen maybe you've chosen the wrong profession. Ridge is not the only school in jeopardy from the SLT. All the schools of choice in the district await the chopping block. That means Salt Creek, Juliet Low, and John Jay will be facing similar outcomes. I have it on authority that the
30
superintendent
seconds.
is personally against all schools of choice. Her bias shows in each and every recommendation she has proposed to the board. I know this from the unsolicited phone call I received from her on January 24th. Members of the board, I urge you to once again listen to the community, not just the Ridge community, but the entirety of the district, and once again vote no. Keep Ridge, keep the balanced calendar. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucas?
Yeah, I believe.
You had to leave? Did he have anything written down that he wants to share and we can put in?
I don't think he wants to give his notes, but
Okay.
I want to share that he had a medical emergency with his son.
Okay. Nicole Kissinger? Yeah.
All right. I'm Nicole Kitzinger. I've been up here to defend Ridge more times than I can count this school year. And frankly, I'm exhausted. I'm tired of convincing all of you that Ridge is special, not any more special than any other school in the district, but special to all of the families that attend. Just like I'm sure that other families from other schools feel that way about their own. What I don't understand is why you would want to close Ridge without good reason. Ridge's enrollment is low, but so is John Jay, Frost, and Juliet Low. We are open to everyone. Anyone can choose to go to Ridge, just like anyone can choose to be part of the dual language program. Closing Ridge is not going to improve the education of any other students in the district. The only thing that can improve their education is hiring more interventionists and getting our kids back to where they should be academically. I would love to hear from the board what they think the biggest issue is plaguing our district right now. I would hope that the answer isn't Ridge, because at least from this side of the room, we can see where the issue lies. Closing Ridge will only benefit the administration and make their job a little bit easier, all while displacing students and staff who have a long-standing relationship together, some upwards of 20 years. Also, while I'm up here, the general lack of empathy at the last meeting, not being able to sign in after many meetings where we have had public comment, and then you say, if anybody else would like to speak, please come up and talk now. And we didn't get that at the last meeting. It was very disappointing. People think that they could speak without signing in because we've allowed it in the past. Not to mention there were only 3 people who hadn't signed in time, and this would have only taken 9 minutes for them to speak. You say that you want a good relationship with our community, then please do not attempt to silence the community that you are here to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Zach?
Hi, my name's Sarah Zach. Members of the board, tonight you will vote to approve a calendar for the coming school year. Please vote no on item 8.01, which eliminates the balanced calendar, a program that is currently working for hundreds of children in our district. Balanced calendar is research-backed to help kids. A shortened summer break can close opportunity gaps, especially for low-income students who do not have the same access, resources, and learning opportunities as some of their peers during a traditional summer break. Remediations like the balanced calendar are extremely important to preserve because unfortunately, socioeconomic status has become the most indicative factor in educational success in young students, and we must protect programs that can mitigate this inequity. An abbreviated summer break can also benefit special education students and kids who thrive on routine. It's baffling to me that we've been discussing equity for the last 6 months, and we're so ready to cut an evidence-based program that provides opportunities for greater equity. It's always a bad decision to eliminate programs that are currently working for hundreds of kids for the convenience of the adults in the room. As you pointed out in the initial discussion on this topic, not every single family will be able to choose our balanced calendar school. However, many can. Let's reach out. There is certainly work to be done in order to have the student population of Ridge mirror the districts as a whole, but we have to promote the school and provide supports that make it feasible for low-income families to send their children there. Most importantly, subsidized intercession care that doubles as remediative STEM-based learning. As a reminder, this is not a school or a district in crisis. 59 currently has a balance of $87 million in unreserved funds. So the cost of staffing intercession and managing 10 additional payroll calendars seems pretty negligible. If you would like more information on benefits of balanced calendar, I highly recommend the work of Dr. Carolyn Shields. She's a professor, she's an educational researcher who has spent most of her career on equity and social justice. And she writes at length about how balanced calendar can facilitate these ideals. In an interview, she was asked why schools would make the choice to switch back to a traditional calendar from a balanced calendar. And her response is, most frequently, this has been done for political reasons, including pressure to have district schools on a single calendar.
30
I know
seconds.
of no instances where a school gave up on balanced calendar because of a detrimental impact on student learning. Members of the board, let's do the right thing. Let's keep the balanced calendar in place. Removing this program won't do anything to improve the 8 areas of focus under the equity journey. In fact, it's going to strip students of an opportunity for increased access to programming. The balanced calendar is currently working for hundreds of children and has the potential to be life-changing for many, many more. So let's please keep this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Renata Jablonski.
Good evening. My name is Renata Jablonski, and I am a rich parent. I have a son who is enrolled in 2nd grade right now, and I also have 2 boys who are older. One is 21 and one is 16. I would like to say that please consider keeping our balanced calendar as it is. It has been amazing. It works for all of the kids, especially with kids with dual language program. I am dual. I speak both languages, Polish and English, so are my children. When they started, they didn't, but school helped. Balanced calendar helped. Extended day helped. We People took away those things from us, from parents, especially from parents who have children who speak different language than English. So please consider it and think about it. I was looking at the research that was done, and our school is doing great. And I hope you're not going to accuse us of just being white and that's why we're good. No, maybe it's because we do have balanced calendar. We have more time. When I spoke to the teachers, they told me normally it takes up to a month and a half for children to catch up after 10 to 12 weeks break. We only have 7 weeks break. So within 2 to 3 weeks, our children are ready to go farther in instead of remembering what was being done in the last semester. So please consider this. Also, with all the research that has been done, nothing has been done that will show what is the benefit for children with dual languages, especially how it will improve them to have an extended time at school or to have balanced calendar. Nothing was ever touched about it in none of the researches. And I think it is very important since our district actually has such a big community of children who speak 2 languages. So please, board members, vote for us, help us to keep the school, and hopefully in the future, make all the school in our district year-round calendar because it will benefit our kids. Second thing I would like to mention also is the bus situation. I just want to say last week we had a situation where there was no show of a bus. We were standing in the rain for 15 minutes, no information from the school. And the last meeting I attended, it was shown that we have a great communication system, especially with the Department of Buses Services. There was nobody informed us about anything. A bus from junior high stopped by and she said she will pick up our kids. Our kids got on the bus. They
30
were actually
seconds.
driven to a junior high first, and then they were dropped off at Ridge. From what I've learned, other children for our line 7 were picked up by different buses. None of the parents were informed about this. And I called the school. School was not informed about this as well. So please, situations like this should be put into consideration first because it's children's safety. I didn't feel comfortable putting my child on the bus that I have never seen with the children who are much older than him. Also, I would like to double check regarding. Done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Paul Meckley? Mackey?
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, I look like a you. I'm sorry about that.
It's cool. First, I want to say I really appreciated the RBC presentation. I'm a television producer, and I kind of started off at school in a program similar to that and kind of led into my career now. So it's really great to see. Again, my name is Paul Mackey. I have a son he's the first of 2 kids who's turning 5 in June. And he's entering kindergarten in the fall. I called both Bird and Ridge this past week regarding registering the school, and I was told that today you guys will be proposing the idea of getting rid of the balanced calendar. As a resident of Elk Grove Village for 9 years, I always thought that it was great that this community had so many options for elementary school, whether it be the homeschool Ridge or Queen of the Rosary. So when I found out that, I was a little bit disappointed about hearing about the change, and I'm kind of just here today to say that I would really appreciate if you kind of left the balanced calendar as an option for parents in the district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mimosa Uno?
Hi, my name is Mimosa Uno, and I'm coming up here as a parent. My son is in 4th grade, and he goes to Ridge. I just wanted to share my journey of my choice in putting my son in Ridge. I'm in that position where I don't have to stay in Elk Grove or in District 59. And when he was getting ready to enter kindergarten, I did my research. I love doing research just to look at the different schools to see, should I stay, should I go? And one of the the biggest draw for me to stay in this district was Ridge. The fact that there's the balanced calendar option, the fact that the curriculum of the school seemed really it's exciting. Like it's a little different, kind of Montessori, like, you know, like it was project based, checking out the classrooms, just something as simple as like the seating arrangements and the tables and how it's made so that you can, like, you know, the kids can easily change how the tables are put together, because it encourages group learning and, you know, having the family days. But the biggest draw, and just a little bit about myself, I am a single parent. At the time I had to commute to downtown essentially every day for work. And so the hours, the start, the end, and especially the balanced calendar, that was so important for me. Like the fact that I had an option, a choice to apply, put my name in the hat for the school. Yes, our home school would have been Salt Creek, I believe, Salt Creek or Claremont. But the fact that I was given that choice and how the breaks are. So yes, I mean, yes, you give up having a shorter summer, right? But then you have those fall breaks, which is so crucial, 2 weeks. And then instead of 1 week of spring break, you get 2 weeks of spring break. And as a single parent, but as most of our families in the community, right, like travel just to even like plan vacations, it makes it so much easier. I talk to the teachers. They really, really appreciate
30
that type of
seconds.
schedule as well. You know, I remember when I did my research, I walked into the district's old building and I was talking just to get information. And I was like, why doesn't more schools in this district adopt this calendar? And even the person at the district staff was like, I know, but for whatever reason, it was voted this way, you know. So anyways, I just wanted to share my experience as a parent, what made me stay here. And it was Ridge, and it was the program and the calendar. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Redmond.
Good evening. I'm here to speak more about the curriculum, and kind of like I was kind of startled by the scores that I've seen. My concern is now that we're getting a new ELA program, hopefully next year, a new curriculum. I'm just really concerned with how that training is going to take place. And my concern is is the training for teachers the same throughout the district? And when does that training take place? Is it in June? Is it in July? Is it in August? I mean, I think teachers definitely benefit from having training all at the same time from the same trainer, so it's consistent. You're creating equity. And I don't know if that's happening. Maybe that could be why test scores are so often. Some schools are doing well and some schools are not. But I'm just really concerned with all of that. Teachers definitely need that consistency. I think having some schools having training for curriculum at some point and others at different point, I think is not creating that equity. And I would just like to know, in whatever calendar is adopted, is there going to be time for teacher professional development before school starts, like in August? So all these teachers are being trained at the same time from the same trainer, using the same materials, so they could implement it right away into their classrooms. If it's done in June or July, that's not going to benefit kids, it's not going to benefit teachers. And also throughout the year, you have to have for continuous professional development. These kids, I know they're making growth, but they are still severely behind, and they drastically need this professional development. And please make sure you're providing the teachers with everything they need. Don't just throw them the materials and say, figure it out. I think they need that training and everything they can get. And like I said, the best time will be in August. They need collaboration within their school and within the district. And I'm wondering if that's also going to be provided. So the whole entire district is getting training at the same time and not just piecemeal. Well, your school's doing it now. Your school's doing it now. That's not going to create consistency. And that might be, again, affecting the test scores, which is a huge concern of mine. And just looking at the schools, how there's such a big difference. So I don't know how it was done in the past. I don't know if it was like I know I could go to, workshops that are, oh, you can go voluntarily get paid. These should be mandatory, like at the beginning of the year within the teacher contract. I don't want to add more time to teachers because I know they already do, but in those like teacher institute days, that's when these should be happening. So those are just some concerns that I have. And like I said, just support teachers as much as possible and
30
just make it
seconds.
consistent so every school is getting the same training at the same time. So these teachers can get everything they need to help our students bridge that gap, and we no longer have kids 3 grade levels behind. And every school is performing at about the same level. And you don't have that huge discrepancy of like some schools are at like, 5%. You have some schools that have kids, they have like maybe less than 5% in the less, 3 grade levels behind. You have other schools that have like 70%. That's a huge issue. So I don't know if it's training, I don't know what it is, but those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be it resolved that on the 13th day of February 2023, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented and amended below. 6.01, approval of minutes of prior meetings. 6.02, disbursements resolution. 6.03, acceptance of financial reports. 6.04, acceptance of recommendations, the Human Resources Report. 6.05, approval to destroy 18-month-old or older closed session recordings, and 6.06, approval of board policies recommended by the Illinois Association of School Boards, press update 110.
Second.
Second, questions, comments?
No.
Roll call.
Ms. Espino?
Aye.
Ms. Lang? Aye. Mr. Mencia?
Aye.
Ms. Petrielli is absent. Mr. Reed?
Present. Yes.
Dr. Sager?
Aye.
And the motion passes.
Item 7.0, pay for literacy curriculum. Wow, we have 2 today.
Good evening again.
All right. Good evening. We are going to begin our presentation tonight with an overview of the key features of the curricular resources that our staff have selected through this process. So tonight we're bringing a comprehensive proposal, K-8, that will be implemented fully next year with some soft starts this school year. Last month, you heard about the process through our teachers. Tonight, we're really going to be focused on the components of the curriculum and why those were selected. Sorry. All right, so you've seen the curriculum framework visual before. Tonight, we are going to really be focused on that yellow part, which is the resource. A universal core resource is a very important component of a curriculum framework. All of these other components are part of what goes on in effective teaching and learning, but in order to have that, we have to have that solid core resource. Tonight, we're going to be really focusing on that piece.
On the screen now, you see the 2 resources that we piloted this school year, the 2 in junior high that we've spoken about before, and the 2 elementary Spanish resources and the 2 elementary English resources. This rating that you're seeing is out of a 5-point scale overall average from the teacher's overall impression. Again, at junior high, this was pretty much every single junior high teacher involved in the pilot process. And you could see that the overall rating for StudySync was higher than Amplify. For elementary Spanish and elementary English, they piloted Savas Mi Visión and My View, which were partners, just the Spanish version and the English version. And then the Adelante is from Benchmark,
and Into Reading is from HMH. So they are not from the same publishers. But as you could see, their overall rating from about 14 teachers that were teaching in Spanish and about 17 that were teaching in English, that overall rating kind of was a no-brainer for us when the Curriculum Council and the Dual Language Leadership Team looked at the results. So what I want to do is, even though this is just this broad view, I want to go through the critical features that we had spoken about before and just give some highlights from StudySync, Adelante, and Into Reading, of which we're proposing that we purchase to have implementation start next year. Those critical features, again, are standards aligned with a focus on scaffolding to grade level skills and concepts. And with using ed reports at the beginning of this process, that was an outside vetting system, we already knew that any resource we were looking at was already going to be standards aligned. We also wanted to look at if students had reading and writing opportunities every day, high focus on academic vocabulary, scope and sequence for the grammar and conventions. We have spoken greatly about those K2 early foundational skills and spelling, and also taking a peek at the different type of assessments that are embedded within that and able to analyze that data. So let's start with StudySync. You've heard us talk about this before, and all 6th through 8th grade teachers, besides a few dual language teachers, are currently doing that soft pilot, soft launch of it. They're continuing on with the program, and that has allowed us to think through some concepts. These programs are highly comprehensive, and in a day to be able to pick and choose what you're going to do or what we want to focus on, what is right for our students. This time period, this late winter and spring, is giving us that opportunity to do so we could have a solid year one implementation plan. So StudySync, though, is standards aligned with grade level texts that have up to 12 texts per unit. And every unit has a different genre of writing. They have narrative and they have informational, and then 2 units of argument writing, which is very important in the middle school grades. There's also print and digital resources. So there's ability to annotate with a pen and be interactive, like the kids like these days. Thinking about reading and writing every day, you could see here's just a screenshot of if the students were in the program, what it would look like for a think question after a first read, or maybe what they call a focus question after a close read. There's lots of questions to answer, a lot of opportunities for discussion as they engage in grade level texts. On the right side, it's a sample of that vocabulary work. StudySync has a plethora of vocabulary. There's text-based words, there's skill-based words. So if you're doing some work on character, there might be the word trait and words that go along with that skill. And then since they're all the units have a theme-based, there's also words that support that theme. So currently we're working on to decide what's that guidance with the vocabulary for next year. When we're looking at grammar and conventions in the extended writing project, which is what you're all gaining to after reading all those texts and you're getting to the writing, there are specific grammar lessons for each unit. And there's also a separate handbook that teachers could use for additional once they see something that they want to teach into. There's also word study and spelling along with this. The assessment pieces assess the priority standards in reading, writing, and language using grade level appropriate texts. And that happens at the end of the unit. There is, as you could see on the screen, a digital version, but there's also print version as well. In addition to those module or the unit assessments at the end, there's written responses and questions for each text that they read as well to show their comprehension on that. Here are some teacher testimonials that came along with their rating. They highlighted that it was engaging, user-friendly, the diversity of instruction. And even one teacher mentioned blasts, which is a component within Study Sync that is more current events pieces. There's always one that matches up with the unit, but an opportunity for teachers to have a current event. And in that, there's a peer review piece where the students can respond to, much like a blog post possibly, or what they do on some social media, to answer each other's questions and respond to their thoughts.
We're going to talk for a minute about our junior high dual language Spanish language arts. So the junior high dual language program currently has their literacy time, English for half of the year, half of the block, and Spanish for half of the time. So they alternate their units. So that is how our current program is structured. We are going to be doing Study Sync with the English instruction component of junior high. But for Spanish instruction, we're going to maintain, as of now, our current experiences that they have been using in Spanish. The concern from the junior high teachers was that we did not have quality, authentic resources at the junior high level that they wished to invest their time and energy in piloting through the process. So they focused on the English component to determine and get their voice in that process. And right now we're meeting with our junior high teachers pretty frequently. We've met twice. We're going to meet with them again to really do some long-term planning around our junior high dual language program in terms of what that pathway looks like for students, what courses they experience when they transition from 5th grade to 6th grade. This is a separate topic, but I think I should share that we have our Lost Links data that we have just started to use to see how students are performing in proficiency in Spanish as well as in English. And then we can use our data as well as our available resources that we have to determine what that program should look like moving forward.
How long is your plan on that? Sorry to interrupt. I mean, I know we've been struggling for this for a while now.
So we met to propose to the junior high teachers an alternative to doing Spanish instruction during the literacy block and instead create a separate humanities course that would allow for enrichment of the Spanish language. Currently, to be very transparent, 50-50 is the requirement to be considered a dual language at the junior high, and we are not currently providing 50-50. So we're exploring how do we provide a more authentic, real, according to the definition of dual language experience at the junior high, while also meeting the student needs. Because as we saw from our data, once they enter junior high, if they're struggling with English proficiency, in some cases it may make sense, and it's the parent's decision on what pathway they would prefer, either enriching and continuing with the Spanish or focusing more on accelerating that English proficiency before they go to high school. So this year we've begun. We're maintaining this plan as of now, but we want to revisit with teachers again in the next week or two what our next steps are for communicating with families, what our current program looks like, and then look to building out the following year a potential humanities course that would become the enrichment dual program at the junior high. Concern from staff through this process is that we don't want to do too much at once where we're trying to create the curriculum too quickly where it is not quality, and we want to make sure that we have the right components in place. So we made it stay the way we are right now to explore further and then see what parents are thinking about what their plans are for a junior high. This year we will have a 5th grade transition meeting, which we haven't had previously, where parents can hear, this is what it looks like, here's where, and then have individual conversations about the student data and what they think is the best choice for those students moving forward.
And this will apply to all dual language students, both one way and two way, correct?
Yes, correct.
Next week, all junior high LA teachers will participate in discussions about the literacy belief statements, the priority standards, and instructional best practices related to Study Sync. And then later this spring on the April Institute Day, they will get training specifically from our trainer from Study Sync, and we'll work with him how to tailor that time with those that are on the implementation team. So those are the immediate next steps.
Can I just ask a quick question? Because looking at the teacher reviews of Study Sync compared to the elementary and then the Spanish, the score was a bit lower, like in the low 3s compared to the 4s out of 5. And so do you feel the teacher group did have confidence in this as a resource? Or are yeah, I guess I'm
Yeah.
wondering that confidence
To
level.
jump on that, because that was one of the questions I had. Like the numbers were, I noticed that the scores were low for the junior high class. Was there a comparison of the new resource versus status quo of the current? Like going on Courtney's question, like are they? It doesn't seem like they're too pumped about it.
They were so there was so there was actually they're very happy to move forward with this curriculum. I would say that there were probably some variances with council members and then the full broad group. I would say that because don't forget every single junior high teacher piloted, and then we had the smaller council, and then we weren't just looking at the number, like what was the score that you gave it, but we were looking at all of the qualitative data that we got from the staff and with the council members, had some very detailed conversations, because it's more than just the number, but it's about what are they concerned about, which resource is going to be the best resource based on the variety of feedback that we got in multiple areas. So we had like quite a bit of qualitative data that we impact with the council as well. I would say that there were some staff that weren't as excited about it originally, and Alyssa has reached out to them individually and met with those teachers and worked with them and discussed and coached them through the next units that are coming up, and really trying to get a cohesive, consistent process for the soft pilot across all of our junior highs. When you're piloting, it is not the same as when you actually own the curriculum and you're in the curriculum. So the comfort levels varied across all of our staff and the time within the resource as well. So now we're really having that process together as a whole district to really plan out and get more comfortable with the features of StudySync.
So I think I have a related question, which is being a pilot teacher is sort of a skill in and of itself. You have to be sort of well versed in the area, but also be willing to take risks and that sort of thing. For the junior highs, we essentially had everybody pilots these two programs. What's the training like when you're a pilot teacher rather than the full rollout?
Yeah. Every time we, before we started, we had about an hour and a half of training with the publisher. And again, it wasn't going very deep into it, but it's getting them into the program and knowing the ins and outs of it. And this day and age, there's always that digital platform piece too. So it's different than just opening up that teacher basal that we used to. So there's that ebb and flow of some people just wanting to just stick with the paper copy, or I'm just going to go all digital. So you had that wide range too of comfort to go into it. Through the pilot, we were always in contact with our trainer. We had a running, just a Google Doc question and answer that they were able to get answers, within 24 hours, and direct email too always worked. I'm trying to think.
I would like to share another component of StudySync, which I would say that all staff are very excited about, is the professional learning support that we're getting from StudySync is far superior than the other resources that we piloted. And that is really something important to take into consideration, is the way that the trainer works with staff, is responsive to questions, and the quality of the training that's provided. StudySync was the most fluid, comprehensive, attentive, responsive, and that is a piece of the whole process that has to be considered as well, because it's going to be a key part of the rollout over the next couple of years. The trainer was very well received of all staff across all three schools.
And so as we go to roll it out, we will have additional training for all staff members, longer than just the hour the pilot. Effectively, a pilot is,
It's just dabbling. It's just trying it out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say each resource has many different professional learning modules and what that could look like throughout the year. So like I said, we're going to do some in-house district work next week, and then have StudySync back in April. And then we'll think about some choice sessions over the summer, and then look at what we could do institute days right before the start of the year, and even on throughout the rest of the year.
How long was that pilot for each one of these?
They're about 30 days.
So for 30 days, the staff was given an hour training. to teach.
That's pretty typical. And actually, our pilot is actually longer than most districts, that you might not even take that step either.
And I would say that there is an initial training to get acclimated with the basics of using the curriculum. But the trainer that I just described, for example, for StudySync, is ongoing available support for the staff during the process. So that is how they get to try it, trial and error, try it out. I'm having trouble, difficult navigating this. Then they can contact the trainer can respond. So there's the initial training, but there's ongoing supports as they go through the pilot process. Piloting is definitely a heavy lift on a district. There's an incredible, and we'll see later when we look at our proposal of what we're looking at in terms of our bundle for like our proposal for our purchase. It is not something that should be done frequently because as you can see, we have been going through this process for a year and a half. It needs to be very thorough, very well thought out, because it takes an incredible amount of time, support, coordination, and cost to do it. So we are very excited about it. But yes, it's definitely a heavy lift. A pilot process is a lot.
And we don't want to make a mistake.
And we want it to be the right decision. I feel very confident today that the comprehensive plan that we're bringing is going to be amazing for our students and staff.
All right, ready to go to elementary? All right. We'll look at HMH into reading. This is for kindergarten through 5th grade, teaching in English. HMH has print and digital available, as you could see on the left-hand side. And for print, students get a reader, basically, that has all the text that they would read for the year. And then there's a foundational skills workbook. Not only this is standards aligned, but it's integrated with science, social science, or social emotional learning, as you could just see on the K through 2nd on the screen right there. And within there, then there are text sets with that content grade level. As for reading and writing every day, there's a high focus on annotations while you're reading, so students can process the text. And they use strategies called notice and notes, which will make junior high really happy because that's what they focus on in junior high. So they're already starting it in elementary then. And that could be done through that read aloud or a possible shared reading. There's, you could see later, there's engage and respond sections where then students can show their knowledge and understanding and express through written form about the text they're reading. Into Reading also has a big focus on the vocabulary development. There are academic or those content-based words that you could see there. You could see prey, predator, school encircling, I believe that's what it says. So that one was all about the animal kingdom. But then there's also what they called generative word instruction, which is just a fancy way to say morphology. So we're going to teach them about how words work, prefixes, suffixes, root words, and whatnot. And what's great about that instruction is that it crosses content. Into Reading has daily, explicit, and systematic instruction in phonological awareness, phonics, spelling, and high frequency words. Yay. There's corrective feedback that they give directions for teachers how to give feedback to errors that students might be exhibiting. There's a plethora of independent activities, small informal assessments, and small group work related to these foundational skills. In the very early grades, there's even instruction on the pencil grip and correct letter formation because that is highly important. And we might not think so, but it is. They have something called Start Right Readers that are text written that you could practice those sonic skills. Into Reading also has grammar and convention work, mainly shows up in the writing workshop where you are working on such things as parts of speech or punctuation. And then there's that little section that says targeted grammar support. So those are just other little mini lessons you can do if you're seeing something show up in the student's writing. For both of these, there are a scope and sequence that has the standards laid out across the grade levels. For assessment and into reading, there are grade level passages where students, again, just like Study Sync, are assessed on the priority reading, writing, and language standards. What they have, they're called modules. We're going to try to just use units, but you could see some examples here. On the left is first grade, and the poem is from fourth grade. There are print and digital options, along with an entire assessment platform to help in that data analysis. Shorter term assessments like weekly assessments or assessments on the specific text they're reading can help guide your small group instruction, and they have teacher resources for that. The teacher testimonials for Into Reading said it's just what we need, and there are many components to help with their instruction, and students are highly engaged when they are doing their readings. I'll pause here for Into Reading questions that you may have. Yeah, so this year we did what was called the phonics patch, and that was just a layered on standalone foundational program that Sadler publisher has that we did in correlation with our learning experiences. It was great, and we've seen much improvement from about a year ago when we started this conversation and had professional learning that all K-2 teachers had to attend about teaching foundational skills. But what it's missing is the correlation to everything else they're doing in a literacy block. So the text that they're reading, what they're writing, when we think of a comprehensive program, this is it. Everything is layered under a topic of, let's say, plants and animals. The texts relate. The scope and sequence has books that are related to it, but they have the phonics skills that support it. So going forward, we're not going to need those patches or Band-Aids or layer on, because this resource is providing all of that for us.
We still have access to phonics if needed for therapeutic tier 2 and tier 3 students that may need that.
Of course. Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah. We'll move on to Benchmark Adelante. And this resource was piloted in dual language Spanish classrooms. And this resource, again, is available print and digital. Students have a little booklet, I would call it, for each unit that they can write in. And then there's some, worksheet looking things in there that could be taken home at the end of the unit. Just like Into Reading, it is integrated with science, and social emotional learning for each unit. In addition, Benchmark Adelante has great language support and even some language objectives for each unit as well. Some of what I will tell you looks identical to Into Reading, but what was not a critical feature, but was of high importance, and the number one focus was that it was authentic to the Spanish language. So Benchmark Adelante, if you would compare it to Benchmark Advance, which is the English program, side by side, same content, same objectives, Benchmark Adelante has authentic Spanish resources. Some of them are translated, but many are written in Spanish the first time and are written by Hispanic authors. Just like all the rest of our kids, they'll be annotating just as well right into those unit workbooks and reading and writing every day. For vocabulary instruction, they have a nice sequence to do that pre-teaching, scaffolded introductions and practice activities. They go a little bit deeper with this as well, with general academic and content specific words, but they relate it to reading and writing words that they're really going to be using in written responses, and then speaking and listening words that might appear in read alouds, and kids might just be held accountable to use it in their oral language, but not necessarily write them. For foundational skills, it is not translated. It is teaching the Spanish language, how the Spanish language should be taught, and that has daily explicit instruction with it, along with corrective feedback for teachers for that professional learning as they teach students how to read in Spanish. There are some nice resource books for the teacher, along with anchor charts to use in their instruction. There's even reteaching and additional practice activities that they have at their disposal. Weekly grammar and language skills are in the program, and they're located either in reading or writing where applicable. For assessment, again, they're grade level appropriate passages that we would assess the priority reading, writing, and language standards for each unit. These are at the end of the unit, but there are weekly assessments, just like I mentioned in Into Reading, that could be more formative in nature to inform some small group instruction. And there are, on the right side, those are all the additional small group instruction books that teachers could use as they see what skills students need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the other two, there's an assessment platform as well for data analysis. The teacher testimonials for Adelante highlighted the authenticness of the text, how teacher-friendly it was to use, and it does meet the students' needs that were in front of them.
Can I ask a question? So the dual language staff, are they required to pilot both programs?
We had,
No,
yeah, we had 2 dual language Spanish teachers pilot Into Reading for their feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the rest of the dual language Spanish teachers piloted Benchmark Adelante.
Mm-hmm.
Going forward during this time period, we're looking at doing some of the same work we're doing with junior high, that the teachers, all the teachers that piloted, were given the opportunity to continue that this spring.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to help us, one, with some of the guidelines and all these pieces. What can we put in our year 1 implementation plan as we try to learn more about the program instead of that 30 days? Through that, specifically in the dual language programs, a conversation was what's happening during English instruction.
Mm-hmm.
So when we met and gave that option to the dual language teachers, we offered them the opportunity. So during during English time, be it a language development time or an integrated time, what would you like to try out this spring? And they all wanted to try out the sister program, which is Benchmark Advance. So we are here tonight too to propose the use of Benchmark Advance as the English resource in a dual language Spanish program.
Okay,
This,
so go ahead.
no, I was going to say this allows us to, the content is the same, meaning if it's plants and animals in Unit 2, it's plants and animals in Unit 2 in English. So if you have that English development time, you were teaching Spanish, you have some text readily available in the English language for extensions and to develop the English language.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have all those foundational pieces as well to use in your small group instruction.
Mm-hmm. So let me
Yeah,
ask. So an English speaking student that is in the dual language classroom, when they are learning how to read in English, they will get Benchmark Advance.
Correct.
But that student's friend that is in English only classroom, when they're learning to read English, they are getting intro reading.
It's a different program, but it's all standards aligned. So if you're learning to read in English, you will follow those the standards and the way that you read in English.
Sure.
The resources just look a little different.
And then correct me if I'm wrong. So is this year the first year that we have authentic Spanish materials for dual language? Because before it would just be translating intro reading into Spanish.
Yeah, our learning experience, there was some authentic text that might have shown
Mhm.
up with mentor text and read alouds,
Mhm.
but when we were using the learning experiences, it was all translated.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say that through our dual language audit process, through our work with the team, the authentic resources was the top priority in this pilot process with our dual teachers. We really, and then you saw like a very big shift in their experience with My Vision versus Benchmark Adelante. This was much more authentic, and immediately they felt the students were responding so much better to it, and they felt that it was much more appropriate for our student needs. So that was when you have all of these, variances in our district, lots of different needs for our dual families, and this is really a priority. Like, we're prioritizing that authentic resource. So that was a big, big driver for us.
Well, let's add another variant to this. What do the Polish dual language students, what are they doing?
So we are waiting for our final report, which should be probably in the next week, to get that detail from that. Then we're going to meet with our Polish staff, and they're going to be using Study Sync for English, but then, into reading. And then we are going to look at supporting them through what does that Polish piece look like.
Yep.
And that would be the next step. And that's kind of based on the recommendations that we're seeing through that audit process. We really want to dissect that and look at that with them and prioritize with that group what makes the most sense moving forward for next year and the year after that. Where do we want to prioritize our energies, our focus to improve that program?
Can I just make a comment?
Yeah.
It's not a question, it's just a comment. My inner child just came out very happy because when I was born here in the United States and I was like in the bilingual classes, I don't really remember actually learning Spanish or anything. So my parents, that's when they decided to send us to Mexico to learn Spanish. That's where I really got like the actual thing. It makes me very excited that they're getting actually the authentic stuff because, one accent does change the entire word. So I'm very happy the kids are getting good stuff, like real stuff actually now. So yeah, thank you.
We're happy to.
So maybe I missed this, and I'm sorry if I did. So we have the dual language kids will have benchmark advanced for their English portion. Did the Gen Ed pilot that at all? I was looking for consistency across English language, again, across English for English curriculum.
No.
So now we could have a second grader learning, or kindergartner learning about plants in the dual language, and in the Gen Ed, they could be learning about countries per se.
Yes,
at the
I'm
same
working
time.
closely with Ann Fleming, who's our science and social science facilitator, and we're starting that work of looking at what is the content in Unit 1 in first grade and aligning it with some activities and further learning in either science or social science. But that will mean that that first grade classroom is looking at plants and animals, while the dual language classroom might be talking about classroom rules or something related to social science.
So then I have a concern from a perspective of a kid that the student that decides no longer to participate in the dual language program and become part of the Gen Ed. There are some differences there, and I understand the standards are still the same, but there's still a different methodology in teaching.
I would say that by the end, the scope and sequence, you're going to hit the same foundational skills. You're going to hit the grammatical scope and sequence. You're going to have those topics, the priority standards works that we did last year during our phase 1. Those are going to be mapped out. Over the course of the year, they're going to get the exact same standard skills. I would say the methodology is similar. The actual the resource is different. If we go back to that busy slide at the beginning where we talk about the curriculum framework, the resource is one component of it, but there's other components as well as instructional strategies being used in the classroom, how we're using formative assessment. So we're not just going to be giving the resource and that's what they're using to drive it. It's going to be one piece of a broader instructional framework for the district. I would go as far as to say that a core literacy framework is the foundation for all of the other content areas. So having that piece in place, and we're going to have instructional strategies that we can then align to. There's going to be a lot of commonalities across those two classes, as well as with science and social science. We're going to start to see more interdisciplinary understandings and common instructional strategies, because now that we have that core framework that's really driven by the priority standards in place. That's why it was so important that we spent that time developing that understanding. But yes, to be very clear, we are going to have different experiences day to day. So the classrooms might not be doing the same thing. Right now, there's overlap with the translated Lucy Calkins units that we're using. But I would say that we would say that the quality is subpar to what we want. So then, that was our decision to prioritize the quality of the core resource over having something that would be the same, which was a driver with our dual language audit. It's definitely a lot to wrap your head around.
That's
it is. But
and I'm thinking of the staff too, from the perspective of a staff member that would be a dual language teacher, or then becoming just a gen ed teacher.
Well, so for our dual staff, having the ability to do advance is better for them, because they're not navigating two platforms.
Right.
And that logistical
benefit,
piece,
yes.
the user-friendly piece of both of these was really, it was refreshing for our staff. They're all of the testimonials were really, really positive, but that's where our dual teachers, once again, we don't want them to be like, okay, because you're dual, you have to navigate way more logistics than anybody else. So having them be able to use advance is to a great benefit to them. It's going to be a lot more streamlined. And then as we build out our schedule for next year, we're going to look at our literacy block, and we're going to provide guidance, as we do every single year, on what that block looks like and how we can integrate some of our science and social science pieces, because these curriculum frameworks are very content heavy. So we have some opportunities where we can streamline even further for teachers. It's going to feel like a big change, but I think in general, it's going to feel like some of the pressure got taken out of their day with these comprehensive resources. But yes, it's going to be a little different than what we've experienced up until now.
Randy Green.
Dang, I do that. So follow-up question: how is that going to affect collaboration then between the staff of a dual language that's teaching one versus another?
So it will impact collaboration. When we have singletons in our district, they will not have a partner at their building. However, looking at being problem solvers as we are, we're looking ahead at how do we provide opportunities to have staff come together and do grade level collaboration, whatever that might look like. I know that our multilingual program, Dr. Perdomo, has offered collaboration opportunities for staff to come. Sometimes it might be after school, they can get compensated for their time. It can be during an institute day. So that collaboration piece will be highly prioritized during Institute Day. We talked about professional learning. We heard a comment tonight. There's going to be consistent district-wide professional learning for both of these. And the first one, should all go well with the board, will be in April. So our goal is that staff are leaving before summer with a solid understanding of what the resource looks like, what their expectations are, and they have enough that they can start to look, dabble with it, and get familiar with it until we hit year one with lots of support across the district, just like we did with math.
So you mentioned it's digital and print. Are we going to be purchasing print materials for the students, workbooks, readers, all that sort of thing, right? So the students aren't just sitting on their Chromebook all day, right?
Yes.
If you would like, we could actually go to the resolution link where I have the entire proposal. Mm-hmm. It was shared with the board in advance so that you could see. It just shows print, digital, total cost. If we scroll down, we can read all this in general. We've gone through this in slide version, but if we go down continue to go down, here is the whole cost where you can see what we're actually going to be purchasing, which is the digital licenses, the workbooks, teacher materials, professional learning. And we're looking at what we're proposing to the board is 6-year bundle for all resources. And it is very common. 6 years seems to be the magic number with vendors. And the cost, if we went 3, 1, we're always asking, what would that be? It would be far more expensive for our district to go that route. And just to give a quick comparison, we for sure will have a 3-year implementation plan, like absolutely. And then let's say, worst case scenario, a year of review, preparation. Now we're automatically already at 5. Although I'm very hopeful that it will be a very solid implementation and that we're going to be in a great place in District 59 where people are going to feel like we're moving at a good place and people are comfortable, and we're going to be out of reviewing and implementing into really refining the craft of the curriculum. We did ask into reading, just because I'm learning through this process, about why 6 years, and they shared some of the rationale I just shared as well. It is very time consuming, it's costly, but also some districts are even going longer, like 8 years and 10 years. And I'm like, okay, let's start with 6. I think where we've been in District 59, I think that's a very rational decision. So we're looking at that for study sync, into reading, and benchmark as the proposal for the purchase.
How long have we been, or if we could answer it, on the current literacy curriculum?
Oh, yeah, that's good. Oh,
On the using the current,
like over 8 years.
Like how many years
8.
have we been using
Yeah,
it now?
yeah.
8.
8.
And that 6-year, it sounds like you feel confident with your curriculum review cycle that you'll be able to sort of integrate that into your process of, okay, we've finished the implementation piece. Now we can actually evaluate, is this a long-term resource for us? Is it?
I think the 6-year lines up very, very well with that process. We're in year 2 of math. I know it seems like it's been a lot longer. It's only year 2 of math, which means that students and staff are still getting familiar with it. And year 1 goal was just use the resource. Now we're getting to more refinement with it. We have learned from that, and now we're going to create our implementation plan with the input from we're now going to turn the council into an implementation team and help us with their teacher leadership and their support. But we are going to be really looking at, that whole process again. And this timing does line up well with what we would expect to see.
The math piece, what is our yearly commitment there? Are we in a 6-year commitment with math?
I would need to double check. Michelle's probably listening and probably go, I think we're on 3. I think it's a 3.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's not, okay.
Yeah,
Just
it's
trying to
not
see the
6, it's
overlap
3.
of what it
Yes.
would be.
And as we are moving into science and social science, we're seeing some overlap. We're seeing SAVIS and HMH. We're seeing some comparative resources that we're looking at there. And we're kind of like getting ahead of it now, like give us estimates on what years you're offering so that we can kind of align some of our thinking with how those vendors are looking at how they want to propose purchases.
And this would be coming out, this is a yearly payment, right? At 49?
Well, there's different options. So this is giving the district a sense of what it would be, like what's the cost per year if you look at this curriculum. However, for the bundle, you would want to be paying most of it up front, or you can do it over 2 years. So through this process, I've been working with our finance department, with Ron, because we knew that we were going to have major shifts in our curriculum resource, and we haven't purchased a resource like these in over 8 years. In fact, the Lucy Calkins was nothing like this. We purchased some very, very minor spirals that were distributed to staff, but this is on a scale that is completely, you can't compare it.
Is that professional learning just 4 days in the first year of implementation? That's not every year, correct?
I believe that's just in the first year.
The first year, yeah.
Yeah, 4 days of formal training at no cost. They also have additional bundles you can pick, but we just thought with the first year, we'll start with that.
But we typically, for our resources, we would have ongoing training because you have new
Yes,
teachers
exactly.
coming in,
Yeah,
right? So
for
there's,
sure,
There's,
So
This is just study
right now-
sync. Yeah.
Right now that's visible is study sync, and you can see into reading, and you can see benchmark. We broke it down in the same way. And sometimes where it says no cost,
some of this has to do with the bundle as well. So they won't even, yeah, if you get down to a yearly, we're talking triple the cost because they charge for all of the differences. When they present as a bundle, that's when you're getting a lot of the package, so to speak.
It's still twice the nice too.
Yes, yeah. So then we've got
Oh, for sure.
that, and then the Adelante is a little bit more expensive as well. But for the quality of the program, for the needs of a dual language classroom, if you look at what we're paying over in a 6-year period, it's very.
Mhm. What's the total at the end of the bill? Are we looking at $2 million?
Yeah.
Yep, a little bit more.
Keep scrolling down. The numbers keep getting bigger.
There you go. Yes, yes.
Mhm.
Yes, that's it's quite a large number when you look at over 6 years. But if you look at this is what it costs per year to have comprehensive, quality literacy resources in the hands of teachers.
Mm-hmm. And me always thinking of what could go wrong. What if in year 3, all of a sudden we say this is not working? What result? What happens?
If in year 3 we see that this is not working, then that prompts the phase 1 of our curriculum review process, which is to bring a team of teachers together, probably some of the same members, maybe some new people, and we go and we take a look at, we go back to where we are with our standards, we look at our student data, we look at our needs, we look at where the roadblocks were occurring, and then we look to determine whether we want to make adjustments to our implementation plan or whether we want to look at new resources again. And then that would be, you'd have to pilot and we'd have to go, there could be new things out there. Then we'd have to go through that process, that would probably be a year. So then after 3 years, we would be like, okay, we're in a year of review while everybody else continues to use the resource. And then we would go from there. So it would be, quickest scenario, we'd be turning over in 5 years.
Mm-hmm. So 1.8 right now is the minimum because in junior high, there's still going to be more spend to account for the Spanish piece, right? So in a year or two, there's probably going to be another.
Honestly, at this point, we're not 100% sure what that literacy block is going to look like in the dual program at the junior high. There are some staff that feel that literacy block should just be in English, and that I had shared, that we talked a lot about a lot of things tonight, that instead we should be, if we want to include that, we have Spanish for Spanish speakers, and then an additional humanities course that could be created over time. And we could be collaborating with other districts to look at what that is. But I think it's a student need that we need to look at student data, what is going to be the best decision for those students moving forward. And that's the crossroads we're at now. So could there be more expense? Potentially, or it could be just picking up some of the study sync cost for those students. Oh, they're already going to get it. So no, there wouldn't be, it's potentially, this could be where we're at because we might not be able to find that authentic resource.
Sure.
Once you get to that level where teachers are teaching one subject, what happens is that they often create their own. I understand that's not desirable for our teachers right now. I totally get that. But that's why there aren't as many comprehensive programs that we see in the K-5 arena.
So Adelante is not a 6 through 8, it's only a K through 5 program.
I think it might go to 6th.
I understand that's a lot of information, but this has been a lot of work in progress. So I want to thank Alyssa for her leadership. She's been working very diligently and collaboratively with our staff. And I also want to thank all of the administrators and teachers who have been part of this process. There's been quite a large number, and they have spent quite a bit of time on this in their classrooms and in meetings outside the school day. And this has been instrumental. The teacher leadership is a core value of mine, and we're seeing the results of it. I feel very confident that this is going to be successful. Thanks to the work of the teachers.
Yes. Can the board receive the feedback from the pilots?
Yeah.
Like the teacher feedback that was submitted, were there comments?
Yes, no.
We saw some of the comments.
Yes.
Yeah, we've given some of that here, but we have a lot of data that we've collected. We could look at that and see what else you would like to see there, but there's quite a lot of qualitative data, and there's a lot of data that's just rankings of various key components we were looking for.
Just send it to Joe. He'll tell us what it means.
I'll simplify that. When you go into the K-5 schools and you go into one of the pilot teacher rooms, they're super excited.
Yes.
So I will say that's the qualitative answer is they're really
Yeah.
psyched about it.
I think that's exactly that's the point right there. That's perfect.
Thank you both.
If there's any questions, please feel free to share. Dr. Bresnahan via email. We'd be happy to follow up because I know that was a lot to digest in one sitting.
All right, 7.02 resource allocation process overview. Ross, we hear from you before FOIA requests.
Good evening. I won't have as many numbers. This is an overview, so we can sit back and learn a little bit tonight. The purpose of this presentation is really to walk the board through our typical process of determining resource allocation. So in beginning to organize this presentation, I wanted to look back as far as I could find artifacts. And I found this resource allocation process from 2016. I believe it goes back further than that. It's the process we still use. The next few slides will have text from that 2016 document. District leadership deliberately allocates, reallocates, and assigns personnel resources to meet the needs of learners so they can be successful for life. The process follows guiding principles and drivers, and they align to the vision and strategic plan, equity, student needs, research, data analysis, and fiscal responsibility. Just thought that was kind of fascinating. All the way back in 2016, it looks like it was written just a few months ago. Let me see. Here we go. There are a number of phases in the process. A few of the phases work together at the same time, but we start by reviewing the guiding principles and drivers. That is that resources and staff follow the needs of the students. That we want consistency across school and programs. We want equity and services for all students, and we want seamless and aligned systems for students who move between schools within the district. Mr. Reed asked a question not too long ago about what happens when students move about. Do they have the same experience in school A and school B? And the drivers, district vision, philosophy, equity, student needs, interests, based on research, data, and being fiscally responsible. And again, these are the drivers that we've been using for many, many years. So we start collecting feedback from all of the principals and department leaders, and we start identifying potential gaps in our resources. Then district leadership, we start reviewing those gaps. We start looking at that feedback. For example, Mrs. Savage and I sat down with Dr. Perdomo, and we looked specifically at gaps for students in some of our bilingual classrooms. And then we conduct a review of the potential resources that may be within the district that we could utilize internally without adding additional cost. And then if needed, we prioritize those gaps in case we can't fill all of them. We present to the board the process, and then if needed, we make a recommendation to the board to increase the total amount of staff so that we can fill those gaps. And then we spend all spring, summer, and fall implementing that plan, hiring, and putting pieces into place. So let's look at phase 3 for a moment. This is a common question. So how do we determine where staff are needed? For many, many years, the question sounded something like this. What are the program's instructional goals? And what does the building's enrollment say about what's needed? Historically, in District 59, that worked very well because our enrollments were balanced. Our programming was pretty balanced. So we did not have to shift teachers around the district very much. And when we were adding additional staff, asking the board for more positions, it was typically because we were expanding programming. For example, With an ESL resource teacher, if we were expanding programming, we would ask the board, we need this position at more buildings. That works really well when you just say, here are all of our elementary schools. Everyone's going to get an interventionist. Every school gets an interventionist. When our staffing ratios are based on school, it looks like this. Unfortunately, this is what our schools look like. When everyone gets an interventionist, we have resource problems. This is just based on school enrollment. When we look at programming within those schools and then class sizes within those programs, you can see that our district has changed and evolved over time, and our resource allocation process has to adjust. So how much has it changed over time? If we were to look just at enrollment and requests for additional staffing, this is enrollment from the Illinois School Report Card for pre-K through 8 over the last 6 years. So a steady decline. And this has been the resource allocation trend over the last 8 years. I'm gonna try this button out. Okay. So you can see this one right here. This was actually, I went back to board meetings, board minutes. This was actually a 2-year plan. And then this was the pandemic. Reflecting on this, my opinion, District 59 does not have a staffing shortage, yet we are short-staffed.
Ross, can you go back to the staffing? What were I know the 10 and 21, 22 were the math interventionists, correct? The 27 and 23, 22, 23 were the extra PE, art.
And math for the math, the middle school math.
Middle school math, okay.
Schedule.
Did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. So resource allocation needs to use a variety of staffing strategies as opposed to just adding new staff. We have to really prioritize data-driven student needs, not just building allocations. We need to utilize internal cost-neutral staffing reallocations, and we need to add additional staff when needed. This is phase 5 and 7 in the process. So instead of just looking at one of those items, maybe an assortment of those 3 in conjunction district-wide based on the school or the need. Going into next year, here are some of the challenges we're facing. Many of these we've discussed before, so they should look familiar. Enrollment changes in school sizes, elementary class size range and singletons, programming class size compliance. You may recall we talked about that as well. That can be a staffing need. Current staff licensure compliance. So if you've been teaching it for the last 10 years and the enrollment and the student needs have changed, you may not have licensure that aligns perfectly with what you have been teaching for many years. So then our departments need to start looking at solutions about, can we get teacher licensure for those individuals? How can we support that? Do we move people into roles where the licensure aligns with the compliance? These are the things we're starting to look at that we hadn't had to often in the past. School instructional space availability. I think it's important to remember that even if we could say, yes, let's hire 5 more teachers for Juliet Low, that's not going to be a problem. They have classroom space for those 5 teachers. That is not the case at a couple of our elementaries. So we have to consider that. And we have to remember that when hiring additional staff, and just to be clear, that doesn't mean replacing a teacher who retires. This means normally we have 100 staff, and we're going to say we need 110 staff. That is a reoccurring and compounding salary and benefit costs every year. We also have to remember that we need resources for our staff. We just heard a great presentation about resources for staff. So that means more materials, that means more laptops, that means mentors. We have to consider that. And then we have to also consider the availability of high quality staff. So again, just some of the challenges that we're ready to take on. So let's revisit that phase 3 I showed you a moment ago. The evolution of these questions that we're looking at now is, what are the recommended instructional targets? Not what are the program goals. What are the instructional targets? And what does this data say about specific student needs? So right now we're currently working on updating our ratios to align to meet those compliance standards and updating ratios to align with current student needs. We'll revisit the example with ESL resource. So while we may use access data, instead of just looking at how many students qualify per school, we may want to look at how students scored. And then we want to look at how many minutes per those categories would require instruction, just like interventions. And then does that align appropriately with what that school has? And this is shared work that we're doing right now in these phases as we're starting to approach this in an evolved manner.
Just want to make sure I understand that. Can you just like reiterate that example with the student need that you described? Because the first one makes a lot of sense to me, right? The teachers and the certification, but what are you using with the students?
So student needs, that chart that showed all the schools getting one interventionist.
Right.
We would look at intervention data. For ESL resource, we're going to look at access data.
Right.
And so if school A needs 4 ESL resource teachers based on the specific data, not only of just what program the student is in, but where they fall in that program and their needs.
Got it.
That's the level at which we're looking. So 2 schools could have the same amount of students in ESL resource, but one school may have students that are testing out at a lower level with a higher need.
Right.
So that old model of everyone gets one, or we just hire more for that school. We're just looking at it at a more detailed level.
Yeah. And so I guess it sounds like that's a multi-factor. It's like,
Absolutely.
do you qualify for an intervention? At what level are you testing? And you're taking all these factors to then
Correct. And that's the work we're doing right now, really just starting to update those ratios. To, you know, what factors, how many factors. This is a newer, we haven't, again, not being critical of how we used to do things, that was effective, but our needs have changed. So we're really starting to update our process to be more detailed in the sense of student need based on data, and then assigning allocations in that way.
I think the earlier conversation and what Ms. Farfan shared earlier, just there's not one exact, like X interventionist could provide X number of minutes. It's what are the student needs? What are the minutes per the intervention that it requires that differ? And all of those components. And then I would say it also ties into even class sizes, right? When we have staffing that's allocated at class sizes worth 12, 13 kids, they have different needs and can meet their needs different than a class size of 24, 25, 26. All of those things really have to be put onto the table to determine a true staffing need using this kind of approach.
Yep.
That's helpful. So it just sounds like you're taking what was a sort of surface level and taking it like 5 levels lower. And okay.
Yep. And considering all of those challenges that we listed too. So even if we were going to use the old traditional model, everyone gets one, that would be a challenge for 2 of our buildings because there's nowhere for those 2 teachers to go physically out of capacity space. So next steps, as we're engaging in really phase 4, we're exploring the internal budget neutral staffing solutions. Can we combine some small classes? We have some classes at the same grade level at some schools that are 12 and 12. Can that be 24? Free up a Spanish speaking, highly qualified, experienced teacher. Does that become a classroom teacher, an interventionist? All of those pieces, we're looking at that. We're weighing that with, that creates a singleton. You know, where do the drivers and those priorities point us? And I think it's really important to note, as Dr. Brejnahan shared in her example, that could look different at school A versus school B, as we're really just trying to maximize those resources. It will be unlikely that it would be a one size fit all approach for all of our buildings because we can see that they're in different places. Can we consider some programming consolidations? We consolidated some programming last year at Juliet Low. We're looking at that as well. Reallocating staff, as I mentioned before, and then reassigning staff if needed based on that licensure piece or enrollment. And again, I think the key word here for phase 4 is we're exploring these. We're just starting to really identify those ratios, review the current data as Mr. Luloff has shared earlier tonight, and then start looking at these options. All that would lead to phase 7, which would be if we did need to add additional staff, we would come back to the board and we would recommend what that increase would be. So again, the example of an ESL resource teacher, based on just student data, I believe if we use the old traditional method, we would need over 15 new teachers. 17 teachers is a $1 million commitment for year 1, which compounds. If we use an approach that combines all of those strategies, we could probably, we believe, again, we're still exploring these, we could probably hit that same mark by reallocating some staff and then adding only 7 teachers. So that is the approach we're taking to then come back to the board if we in fact do need to increase that staffing plan.
And what's the timing for phase 7? Are we thinking March is when that type of recommendation would come?
That would be ideal. We're working right now on probably phase 3, 4, 5, and 6 as we're really starting to look at those things. But it is one of those things where, like with benchmark data coming in, you're kind of waiting, and then all of these things kind of start coming together all at once too. So we would absolutely want to know coming out of spring break what those openings are. We have a commitment to tell staff what their assignments are before the last day of school. And then we want to get jobs posted as we'll be going to job fairs, and we want to make sure we're first in line for all of that candidate pool.
I guess a sort of left field question, but as part of the resource allocation, like the issue that continues to plague me a bit is like subs and how we have interventionists filling in as subs. Is there any possibility of considering like a sub pool that would be full time to make sure that like our interventionist time is protected?
That is a terrific question. It's actually already on our list, on our wish list. Could we have a position? Not sure what type of position that would need to be in terms of, again, trying to get the most out of our resources. That would be assigned per school with primary sub duties to then preserve interventionists, coaches, things of that nature. We also do know through some consolidating of some of the programs or class sizes that if we could also free up staff, there could be a nice balance there. But yes, we are absolutely considering that as a potential option. Thank you for that question. Any other questions or discussion items? Okay.
One quick question before you go.
I knew there was one coming. I provided some wait time.
Collecting feedback from the schools as to what they need. How do you do that?
So we meet with all of the building principals. We meet with all of the department directors, and we look at programming, enrollment numbers, assessment data. We look at it from that standpoint. Many of our schools are also connecting on a daily basis with staff. Our building leaders know their staff and their buildings, as I'm sure you know when you visit them, incredibly well. And this isn't the one time that they reach out and ask for needs. This is an ongoing conversation throughout the year. There are many times where we are providing supports during the year. For instance, if 20 third graders moved into a school, which could happen, we don't wait till next year's allocation process. We can hire a new teacher. If a student comes in with an individualized education plan and needs an assistant, we do that. So it is an ongoing conversation, but this time of year, we do really sit down and we look at all of the schools together and we really start looking at, okay, what are the 1 or 2 things that you think would really leverage some relief and improvement for your for your
Yeah,
student.
and that triggers something else in my mind. With the amount of newcomers that come to the district, are we looking at that purely as just enrollment numbers, or the need to hire specific staff to address this?
That is also an item that is specifically on our list.
Mhm.
Again, some positions could support multiple needs, but newcomers, subs, teaching assistants, we really look across the board. And principals and directors are very good at letting us know what those needs are. It doesn't necessarily mean position, what the needs are. Sometimes they equate to a position.
Sure.
Other times we start getting creative, and we're not afraid in District 59 to say, okay, well, what if we could try something different? Could there be a position where you are primarily a sub, but if that building doesn't need it that day, you go to the next closest building, or you provide intervention support or other assistance in the building? Again, we want to maximize those resources. And it's really nice when you're able to be upfront with individuals during the hiring process so that they know what they're signing up for. Many districts right now are understandably struggling because we're hiring assistants, we're hiring teachers, and the role may look a little different because the daily needs continue to be, not having enough subs or something of that nature. And it's hard to predict. So we want to get to that stability piece. So yes, that actually is on our list, and others. And as we get closer to that work, we'll be communicating that out to the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Item 7.03, seal coating and restriping bid. Mr. O'Connor.
Dr. Bresnahan, Board of Education. Let's talk about some seal coating and restriping. So we do maintain an asphalt maintenance program that we put in our 10-year program, our 10-year facilities plan. So we have to seal coat, restripe, and fill the cracks of approximately half of the district's parking lots every other year to make sure that everything is settled and that just maintenance and upkeep. So we have the locations Claremont, Jay, Low Ridge, Frost, Rupley, and Salt Creek. We opened up, had 4 bids, and there was a low bid that was $44,471, which was below our $60,000 thought. So that was a very nice surprise.
So this is just an annual. Right now, it's 44 for this half of the school. Next year, it'll be approximately around the same, 40 to 60 for the other half.
Yeah,
which is
depending on
the
inflation. But
interconnect.
yeah.
Okay, no question.
But we were surprised that it actually came down as low as we thought. So, and with the background, the references all came back great. So we're in a good spot.
Good.
7.04 transportation bid. The district did receive 3 bids. I have not really discussed it too much, just because we're trying to do our background checks with each of the 3. Additionally, my concern that we've discussed over and over again is the lack of drivers that are out there. So if we can do whatever it takes to ensure that that company has the drivers and doesn't just say it, that we're really trying to flush that out to ensure that we're actually getting something that people are saying, hey, this is what we're giving you. So we're going for that.
For approval in March, we'll be discussing it more in March, or are we still planning to approve it in March?
We'll probably talk more in March just because we have until April with that.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure that everything is as good as can be. 7.05, excuse me. So there's a co-op called the Illinois Energy Consortium. They're the largest electric and natural gas buying pool. They're not for profit. They work with IASA, IASBO, as well as IASB. So they came in discussing what type of rates that they can lock us up with, because I mean, they have at least 200 districts. So power and buying in bulk, correct? With the rate comparison that they gave us, they could lock us in for 3 years at that same rate, and it would save us about $19,000 per year compared to the current rate because of that buying power.
Okay. What do we have to do in exchange? Do we have to do anything as far as the district? Is there the district committing to anything to receive the discount?
We'd have
Receive
to approve of a resolution that we are part of the co-op.
Okay.
And that would be for next month.
Sure.
Yeah.
But how many years would this be?
3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if anybody saw their electrical bill go up, but
Yeah, and
if we can see ours go down, it'd be nice.
we would, yeah. And the co-op, I've been in this group before. It's all. I mean, there's a reason why they have sponsors such as IASB, IASA, and IASBO. They're very reputable.
Sure.
This is just for the energy use. This doesn't cover all the taxes and, well, we don't pay taxes, but the
carrier,
the carrier fees and
Right,
stuff like
okay.
that. How
Correct.
much is that approximately?
I'd have to look into that
Janet?
one. If you don't mind, Mr. Reed, I'd appreciate if you leave Janet alone.
Janet knows everything, though.
7.06, the Brentwood Playground bid. As we all know, the playground is approximately 27 years old. It's past its life expectancy. We have, we've met with some of the playground providers as well as different companies, Dr. Barrett, and we're excited about the possibility that this is going to be put into fruition. It's about $500,000 is what we're expecting, but it is part of the 10-year facilities plan, so it's already been budgeted for and planned on. It's part of us touching every school at some point to make sure that they do have, physical activity as well.
Is this purely our responsibility, or is there an option for the park district to kind of?
This is purely ours. Yeah. And that's why normally, Mr. Mancia, like you said, the last ones that we were doing, those were split in half.
Sure.
Yeah. Because that was a team effort. And then 7.07, the food service contract renewal. So going back with Organic Life, the initial proposal was north of 8%, and we brought it down to the 6.5%. Just we couldn't justify being able to ask for more than that because it's CPI, and that's what we measure what we bring in based on that. So
Sure.
I believe next month I would like to bring a contract renewal for Organic Life. Again, the reason why we're not going out to bid is because the state has new bid requirements that they're creating, and I don't want to be a guinea pig. So our kids don't need that.
Any service issues with Organic Life? Any?
I think there are a couple. In particular, when it comes to the shortage of like certain items that kids want to eat, but those ovens that we are going to receive that you guys graciously approved of, that's going to settle a lot of that.
Okay.
Didn't we get those ovens through a grant now or something?
Yeah, well, we applied
Okay,
for
we're
it.
looking into a
So we've applied for the grant. The worry that we have is since it may be needs based.
Okay.
And we do
funded well.
We do have, we do have funding.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Item 8.01, approval of 23-24 calendar. Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion. Be it resolved that on the 13th day of February 2023, CCSD59 Board of Education hereby approves the 23-24 school calendar for a total of 198 calendar days. A copy is attached to the approved minutes of tonight's meeting.
I can second. Any questions or comments?
To clarify here then, this vote here is to vote that all 15 schools will be on the same calendar, right? A vote of aye is a vote in favor of all 15 schools being on the same calendar.
Yes, that is correct. They'll be starting August 17th, I believe, for K through, or for 1 through 6, on Thursday for 1 through 8, and then on the 18th would be kindergartners, and then day ending in be sometime before Memorial Day.
Right. In other words, then removing the balanced calendar from Bridge.
Yes.
All 15 schools, same calendar.
Any questions, comments? Roll call.
Ms. Espino,
Aye.
Ms. Lang, aye. Mr. Mencia,
Aye.
Ms. Petrielli is absent. Mr. Reed,
Aye.
Dr. Sager,
Aye.
Ms. Schumacher is absent, and the motion passes.
8.02, approval of 23-24 holidays. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion. Be it resolved that on the 13th day of February 2023, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education, in accordance with provisions of the Illinois School Code, designates the following days as holidays for negotiated contracts and administrative/non-negotiated employees for the 2023-2024 fiscal years,
I'll second.
as presented in this motion here.
Questions, comments?
Just to clarify, these are, I never remember, these are the days the holidays are celebrated, or Mardell's not here and I know she would have this question. So I want to make sure a question gets asked.
No, I appreciate that. You can actually see on the right the day that it's celebrated, and then a few say observed on different days.
Like Columbus and Veterans Day are observed right before Thanksgiving, so we have the whole week of Thanksgiving.
Right, so observe means that's the day we
Take off. That's the day. That's the day we're taking
And
off. That is correct.
typically, if we're then in school for one of the holidays, we usually bring it into the curriculum somehow.
We are
Yes, as a matter of
mandated
fact, you're
to.
required.
Yes.
You're required by school code.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And all of these holidays are the same as of this year, right? Juneteenth.
Yes, with the
Celebrated
exception of for next year, Election Day,
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
which
not
will
have-
come
we don't
back
have
the
Election Day.
following year, but not next year.
Are we ready for a vote?
Roll call.
Okay. Mr. Mencia,
Aye.
Ms. Petrielli is absent. Mr. Reed,
Aye.
Dr. Sager,
Aye.
Ms. Schumacher is absent. Ms. Espino,
Aye.
Ms. Lang, aye, and the motion passes.
8.03, approval of District 59 Education Foundation donation to 5 CCSD 59 schools. I'll make that motion. Be it resolved on the 13th day of February 2023, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approved a donation from District 59 Education Foundation to Holmes, Friendship, Devonshire, Early Learning Center, and Frost, totaling $2,491. This donation will be used for music and parks performance, 6th grade play field trip, STEM activities, supplies for student gardens, and flexible seating. Be it further resolved that the superintendent shall communicate to the District 59 Education Foundation in writing, expressing appreciation of the Board of Members of Education, and that this donation will be listed in the official meeting in the minutes of the meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Question, comments? I would say that through generous donations from the community members and former staff members, that we were able to continue these donations and stuff like that. So it's greatly appreciated that communities are, supporting the foundation, and we're able to give these kind of grants and stuff.
Thank you, Foundation.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Reed,
Aye.
Dr. Sager,
Aye.
Ms. Schumacher is absent. Ms. Espino,
Aye.
Ms. Lang, aye. Mr. Mencia, Ms. Petrielli is absent, and the motion passes.
And then,
9.01, strategic plan, department oil reports. I will leave that up to you, Dr. Bertrand.
Of course. So in front of you is our new format where you have some bulleted talking points that our team will be going through. So you have a written record and maybe don't have to take as copious of notes while you're sitting there. So with that, I am going to turn it directly over to our team to go through the oral reports for today. Thank you.
So I see professional learning at the top, so I'll jump in. On Friday, we have our third full district institute day for the year. We've got about 20 individualized sessions planned for both the AM and PM. Main session in the AM, we have about 500 of our elementary staff. We've secured the Belvedere, and we'll have all of our elementary schools going to the Belvedere to receive some training in special ed and inclusion. We're actually using the space, we're dividing it out so teams of schools in 2 to 3 can group together, and Dr. Degree and Dr. Assel and the Educational Services Department will walk the group through that. Additionally, we have a number of curriculum-based sessions going on in the AM and the PM, social science, world language, ELA, math, very junior high driven on the curriculum side. Schools will be meeting also with staff. They have that opportunity. A number of intervention training sessions will be occurring that day. And then many of our job groups that rarely get the chance to get together, PE, our fine arts, art, music, performing arts, band and orchestra, LRC, I'm looking at some of the lists, AVID, they'll come together during the course of the day also to collaborate and have some training opportunities on Friday.
So while we're on that, for our ESPs and our aides, do they get invited to professional
So
learning?
it is a standard work day, so that inclusion and special ed is for all staff that work with kids at the elementary level.
So they're paid for
Yep.
that day regular. Okay.
Yep, they're
Thank you.
here. And then oftentimes then during the day, other pieces that if they don't fit for them, they'll work at the building level. We also, one I missed, moving to online registration. We'll have a session here in the afternoon on Friday for all of our staff that are involved with registering kids at the schools and here at the district level.
Great. Will there be free lunch, and at approximately what time? Me and Randy show up like, hey, what's going on?
The next item is human resources. While teacher evaluation is a compliance item, and this is the time of year when there are some due dates for pre-tenured staff, District 59, District 59 truly values that opportunity for professional growth. So our staff are engaged in goal setting and observations, whether those are formal, informal walkthroughs throughout the year. But you can see, and we have a number of staff members, both teachers and administrators in the audience tonight, the significant amount of work that has been going into documenting these for staff and opening the two-way dialogue about professional growth and needs. So I want to thank them for their efforts. And once we finish with pre-tenured, we start wrapping up with our tenured staff who are now on a 3-year cycle, but still engaging in reflective professional growth practices all year.
In instruction, we just spent a great deal of time talking about our literacy adoption. So we look
You wanna
forward to
repeat
next
yourself?
month. Just a little. Math year 2 implementation. As a reminder, we're continuing to really focus on that piece, and we're entering our next round of implementation data collection with teacher survey, walkthroughs, a parent survey as well is taking place. Our IM family night sessions took place last week, and they were well attended. Thank you to board members that were there, all math implementation team teachers, and our math IM representatives who flew in to support us that week. It was really great. So thank you. I know Daisy, I saw you. I heard you came back again. And Randy, I heard you were there at home. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that night. So thank you for coming. It was a really positive event for our families. Social science. So we're currently beginning the pilot process with the junior high staff. We're in the vendor presentation portion where staff, all junior high staff, almost all are going to be piloting. There's a few who didn't want to pilot at this time, but the vast majority are going to be part of that process. We're looking at 3 different resources currently. Our elementary teachers were very split on wanting to look at a curriculum at this time. And based on the implementation of our literacy core resource next school year, it really makes sense to focus on literacy anyway. And we're actually looking at ways that we can integrate. And there might be some opportunities in a year where we could look at some supplementals that would really support social science and science with some of our vendors. So that is where we are currently with social science. With science, we're going to begin our phase 1 of our review process with a kickoff this summer with professional learning for any members who would like to be part of it. We will be partnering with a consultant named Carol Baker, who is a retired educator and a member of the NGSS writing team for our partnership on that professional learning around our first phase. So she'll be working with us to really dive into the standards, the intent of that process. And then we will continue with a council into the fall, and then look at the resource and the piloting for science as well next school year. World languages, teachers are in the middle of a pilot right now. So we've got Spanish for Spanish speakers, Spanish and French. Those are ongoing. They're pretty much in the middle of it currently. waiting for our final report from Adelante for our Polish dual language program review. And once we receive that, we're going to be meeting with small groups to review and unpack that audit to determine some next steps and some long-term planning around that program.
What's the timing on receiving that?
It should be probably in the next week. Yeah. The kindergarten information nights are taking place next week, February 21st, 23rd, and then the following Monday, the 27th. Those dates are on the board calendars. And instructional coaching.
That's talk about all programs, correct?
Yes.
The dual language,
Yep.
the Ridge,
Yes.
all the different
Yep.
programs, it's all
We-
different.
Yes, we are having slides that we really walk through each of those programs that we have available in our district. Instructional coaching. So we are in the process of gathering feedback in focus group format from administrators, our coach team. We met with them last week, and our classroom teacher feedback to determine what our focus should be based on our current student needs, as well as the structure of the program that would provide us with the strongest professional learning model to support staff in our high need areas next year. This aligns with our resource allocation conversation in terms of what are the needs that we have in terms of data, where are we in our KPI, where do we have groups that need extra support, and what does that coaching model look like? We really want to hear as well from classroom teachers, what are your urgent needs? And then we're going to build out a process to work through an updated model for next school year.
Dr. Ossel unfortunately was not feeling well and unable to be here, so I'll just highlight a couple of things that she has, and then you can read the rest on your own. The preventing school violence piece, that's something that we did some refresher training, very timely and really committed to an annual process with our administrative team, also with our social workers, but we also met with our DEA executive board and thought it would just be great to have that staff-wide on an annual basis to really understand each of our roles and responsibilities when it comes to school safety and how we all play a part in that process, as well as really understanding what our threat assessment is, what that process for communication looks like, and then what are ways that we can report any type of safety issues when we have concerns from both students as well as adults and community members. And then connected somewhat in with that is also looking at that SIL screening surveys. You've heard us talk about Panorama and our Panorama data, so that will be completed at the end of February. And that really gives us a great insight into the social emotional learning, specifically sense of belonging and things like that that help us identify students in need from a social emotional lens. And I'll turn it over to Ben.
Right, as mentioned earlier, we are this year transitioning fully to an online registration process. In the past, we had that for returning students, but this year we are moving that for new students, which includes kindergarten. So the hope here is that the process would be made more accessible and easier. Registration is not a decidedly pleasant experience, I think, anywhere you are, and there are a lot of required components. And so our hope is to streamline that as much as possible, provide supports for families. This will be in multiple languages. And we are going to be providing, as Mr. Ludloff mentioned earlier, we'll be providing support for staff this Friday afternoon. So office managers, assistant office managers, community outreach specialists, staff here in our building, tech assistants, numerous job categories that support the registration process for families. So along with the kindergarten information nights, as mentioned earlier as well, each school starting March 6th, so kindergarten and new student registration will open March 6th. That week, elementary schools will have an evening of support for families, so families who need help with that process. We'll also we've created a support website that's now linked on our homepage, but we'll be adding on the left side of our site, we have some flags that have kind of call out specific information. We'll have a registration flag added within the next couple days. I want to say thank you to our team, to Cassie Talbot, to Kathy Savage, to Justin Sampson, to Carolyn, to Miriam. That team has done a tremendous amount of work. It's a lot to take all these forms and put them and transition them over electronically. It wasn't something we could just scan in. They had to be entered. A lot of forms had to be streamlined. A lot of pieces came together. So we know this is going to be a learning year. We know that we can make the process better, but we'll have to live it and figure out where those areas are for improvement. So we ask that families be patient. Hopefully this will be a better experience for you. Again, as much as registration can be a good experience, we hope that it's easier and you can get things done more efficiently and you don't have to come in and fill out all the forms and all the paperwork and duplicates and all of that. So we're looking forward to hopefully making this more accessible and a bit more friendly.
Oh, I was just going to ask, Ben, if families are like confused or stuck in the registration process online, like what is the best method for them to
They're
get
building
support?
just like what they did in the past with the paper forms. The buildings were a great support. So the building is an excellent place to go for that. Yep. And they can always, they can always call here. We will support them as well. But their buildings will have the most specific information about their situation specific to their building.
And what languages are the forms available in?
The forms are in Spanish and English right now. The only way to do it, Skyward doesn't have a direct translate module, so we had to type those in. So you'll see an English block and a Spanish block. And so if families need additional language support, we'll provide those in every way possible. That's a good case where sometimes going to the building will be a good resource for families who need that extra language support.
And is there some sort of feedback to the family once you've registered? You'll get an email or something just to
that you've completed the process. I have to go and check. I don't remember. I have to go back and look what the final screen looks like that's completed. But I'll make sure that there is some confirmation that you're done. Yes, because we don't want it to be sitting
if it's
open.
a new system, I want to make sure I type in my son's going to be there and hit send. It somehow tells me he's going to be there.
I agree. I agree.
No, I don't. It's a new system.
Yeah.
That means you don't trust Ben. For business services, I have to commend the elementary principals, who some of them are back here. They're assisting me nonstop with we're trying to adjust with the building budget, attempting to make sure the process is a little bit smoother with tools for certain people who have them or don't have them. So I've been asking for feedback so that when it comes to an ask from staff, that it does get to either them and SLT, and that we can then look and make sure there's no overlapping. So for example, like technology, staff shouldn't be requesting that on their own. That's something that should go through Ben's department. Or curriculum. If somebody all of a sudden decides, hey, you know what, I'm going to buy my own curriculum and teach it in my classroom. Well, Susan really needs to be involved in that, or Katie. So that's something we're looking at. The other piece is we're looking a bit further into the weighted funding for each child. So for certain buildings that have maybe more of a population in special ed or ELL, low income, we're putting a multiplier that's going to be a bit higher on that child so that proper resources can be given to them, because that is our goal. As for Crisis Go, they had their first informational meeting. So we're discussions on implementation and setup. A lot of municipalities have been great with us. Actually, all of them have been, and the staff as well. Finance Facilities Committee meeting. If you wanted a synopsis, it was discussion items. So that's what you guys got to hear. And then the Insurance Committee, I kind of added last minute. Mr. Vittori and I had that. We had a meeting just before the board meeting today. And the initial renewal is 7%. We're still going to see how that turns out. It's still 7% is a lot of money, so we have to be very cautious as to how we look into that. But the one thing that was really nice to see was that we, when we moved from Blue Cross PPO to the Blue Choice option, the claims and utilization costs are actually $390,000 less than they would have been last year. And that's due to, we have different people who are on that committee as well. We have, I guess they're not here right now, but some of our union leadership as well as administration. And so it's good stuff.
Awesome.
Okay. Any new and continuing business? Should we get rid of this line item and just make it include as part of 9.0, which is your superintendent
for us?
reports? I don't think we've had anything in 10.0 for a while.
New and continuing. Oh, no. Yeah.
Well, we have 12.0, which is the reports to the Board of Education, which we always
Yeah, it's
have.
different. Mhm.
Yeah, but new business is like a Robert's Rule point of order thing where if somebody wants to add something.
Okay. Everyone anything? All right. 11.0 FOIA requests, Mr. Pretori.
The district has responded to 3 FOIA requests since the last report to the board.
12.0 reports to the Board of Education.
Real quick, big thank you to Forest View. I was their mystery reader this week. As I was leaving, I ran into Principal Wall, and he was talking with a student who was he had won principal for an hour. So the little student, he became principal for an hour. So I introduced myself and I said, it's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of work. What are you going to do first? And he said, I'm not sure. And I said, let everyone go home. So that was my recommendation to him. But,
Did you arrange for bus? Did he arrange for busing and everything?
But it was a lot of fun. So thank you, Forest View. Thank you, Principal Wall and Agnes. I appreciate the invite.
I want to thank the team for the illustrative math night. It was really, I was at the Holmes one on Thursday, and the presenter put up a problem of, I can't remember what the problem was, but it was basically a third grade math problem of area. And the question basically said, which one would you choose? And I'm like, I thought to myself, that one. Well, 8 students that were there came up with 2 answers for each one why they were right. And I'm like, yep, you're right. Yep, you're right. Yep, you're right. And this is part of their like kickoff is, their what do they call it? The start, the warm up. Yeah. And it was kind of interesting to see how these kids thought and looked at things from a different perspective. Where maybe I think of things of black and white, and these kids look at it from different perspectives. And I was thoroughly impressed with that. So I like that. So thank you for allowing me to see that.
Yeah, and the way the students felt so confident talking and participating, it was really, really, really great. It was something I remember when me being a kid, I would be so scared to talk, and they were just talking, and I'm like, okay.
And they seem to, and that's what their parents are. Sometimes, students are a little more open when their parents are there, but they're really shy when their parents are and they're around in public. But I mean, most of them were with their parents, and they were even confident to speak up then.
Yeah, even the parents' reactions to their kid just speaking out, they're
Yeah.
like, oh, you're okay. It was a really, really nice experience. It was a really nice presentation.
And I think on top of that was not only did they give a different answer, but they were able to justify that answer. I forgot to mention that they justified their answer. They explained why they chose it that way.
Okay, NSSEO, I attended the Winter Wonderland with some of my kids. It would happen to be that one week where we actually had some snow, which was nice. Couldn't go out on the ice for any ice skating or ice fishing, but they always do a good job of welcoming in all the students. I got to meet the hedgehog Oreo for the first time, pet a hedgehog. We are working with the facilities committee at NSSEO to develop a similar 5 to 10 year plan like we have here, because they're going to have major facility needs coming up. And we are working on finalists for superintendent over the next few weeks here. It's going to be tough to replace Dr. Hackett, but it's something that needs to be done.
How'd the interviews go on Saturday?
What?
You had 8 hours of interviews on Saturday?
Yeah, but the weeks are blending together at this point. So yes, something like that. Since the last regular board meeting, Randy and I visited Ridge, Brentwood, Grove, and Devonshire. And some highlights were when we were at Ridge, there was a 2nd grade class that had won a something, and they had the therapy dogs and the golden retrievers in, and all the kids were petting them. That was awesome. At Brentwood, we had snowball fights with some children. Well, they threw snowballs at us as they lined up on the bus, we should say. No, we did not throw back.
No.
To be clear,
We kind of stood there and took it.
And I think that's enough.
Thank you for being our devoted representative on NSSEO. That is no small commitment during a search. So thank you.
Anybody else have anything to add? All right. Can I get a motion? We will not have a closed session tonight. I'm going to let you guys get home before 10 o'clock. Can we get a motion for adjournment?
So moved. I move that we adjourn the regularly
Second,
scheduled meeting.
roll call. Thank you, staff.
That's me.
Yeah.
Ms. Espino.
Aye.
Ms. Lang, aye. Mr. Mencia? Ms. Petrielli is absent. Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Dr. Sager?